Well, we get it rolling on the Krueger Show. Hope everybody's having a great Thursday, May the 11th. Larry Krueger, joined tonight by Jessie Naylor, who we haven't talked to for a few weeks. Welcome to the Pig and a Pickle Krueger Show. Check out Pig and a Pickle. They're in Corte Madera. They're in Emeryville. They're open 7 days a week in Marin County, 11 a.m. to 8 p.m. They're open Wednesday through Sunday in Emeryville. If you're like me and you live in the East Bay in Northern California, check them out in Emeryville Wednesday through Sunday. Pig and a Pickle, the best barbecue in all of Northern California. Jesse, good to see you, man. I like that Niner hat. You got an array of Niner hats.
Man, I got a plethora for sure. Where's Pig and Pickle related to training camp? How far are we talking?
Training camp is in Santa Clara, which is 50 miles south of San Francisco. Pig and a Pickle has two locations. They're north of San Francisco in their main location. So I would say it's a good 90 minutes away from camp. Ooh. The other one is in Emeryville, which is also, it's in the East Bay. So I would say that's a good hour. Yeah, we're a little bit of a distance away from Santa Clara. They're more up by San Francisco. But we'll make it happen. We can make it happen. How long are you out here for? Are you coming out for camp for a day, a week, a month?
No, yeah. So we don't know the days yet that they're going to go. We know that it starts end of July, and tickets were cheap, so I already bought them. I'm going to be there the 30th. I think I get into town, so I probably won't make it that day. I think it's a Saturday. I won't make it that day because I'll get in town like around 11 a.m. and camp. If it is that day, will be about an hour into it. Yeah. But I'm staying and I leave Friday, but later on Friday. So however many days from that Sunday to Friday that they go, I'll be there for all of those. So
Sunday through Friday. And where are you staying? Are you staying in Santa Clara? Are you staying?
I'm staying in Oakland with Grant. So
yeah. There you go. Well, yeah, we'll definitely get together. Sure. Emeryville is real close to Oakland, so maybe the three of us can head over there and have some dinner, and it's on me. Or it's on David and Barry, the owners of Pig and a Pickle. They will gladly host us at Pig and a Pickle. Big fans of the show and big fans of this whole format. How's your channel doing, man? How's things going? I saw you, man. I used a couple of your stats to my wife the other day. I'm like, honey, did you know that only 2% of all YouTube accounts get to 10,000 subs?
Yeah.
I'm like, honey, we're at 17,000.
That's great, man. That's great. Yeah, listen,
we're in a very select group right now. I didn't know that.
It's not easy. It's interesting because a lot of 49ers channels are doing fantastic, by the way. And shout out to everybody that makes content. It's not easy to do, especially much love to those guys that aren't full time, because I know how hard it is to go through the grind. It's the same grind I'm in. However, it is really hard to get 1,000 subs on YouTube. I mean, only 9% of channels get there, and it's even harder to get to 10,000, less than 2%. And Larry, I know you are there. I am there. And if you are there or you're close or that's something you're fighting for, definitely don't give up. But, you're in the top 2% if you can get above 10,000 subs. That's pretty impressive.
Well, dude, you're cooking with your channel, and I know you're not doing it full time, but you wouldn't know it based on the traction, and you're building up tremendous traction. Today, obviously, I was down in Santa Clara for a rookie mini camp. Tomorrow, they'll actually hit the field, and I'll have something to actually tell you about, at least what they look like, who's in shape, who's not in shape, who looks athletic, who doesn't, that whole rigmarole. But today was the schedule release, and man, we got a lot to talk about on the schedule release. What'd you think of it? What'd you think of the schedule? Details. I mean, I don't like Steelers in week 1 because, it's like I'm a gambler, right? So I know a few of the trends, Jesse, like the ones that really stand out. And one of them that stands out is that the Steelers are just a freaking nightmare to play in week 1 if you get them at Heinz Field. And sure enough, I looked it up, and here it is. Since Heinz Field opened, the Steelers are 15-2 in their home opener, including 8-1 when that home opener comes in week 1. So are the Niners just kind of sacrificial lambs in week 1 against the Steelers? Sure looks like it on paper.
Yeah, it definitely does. I want to say this. This is and obviously the quarterback thing, we're probably going to talk about that. And we don't know who's going to start. But if Brock Purdy does start week 1, let's not forget that it'll be the Steelers and Kenny Pickett, the first quarterback taken in that draft, versus the last quarterback and the last overall pick in Brock Purdy. That's an interesting storyline. I think that's
That is
very
an
interesting
interesting storyline.
storyline. Yeah. So, and quite frankly, the last pick is probably better than the first pick was. The first quarterback taken. So, really interesting storyline. I think that'll be a lot of fun. Larry, I got so excited with the schedule release that I went and did a thing. I already got my tickets to be in Pittsburgh for week 1. So I'm
Very
banking on the
cool.
49ers bucking that trend and winning that game. I'll be there.
Now, do you know people in Pittsburgh? Do you have another reason to
No.
go to Pittsburgh? No. So
Nope.
you're just flying from Florida. And
Yep.
what part of Florida are you in? Are you Miami or
Tampa.
Orlando? Tampa.
Tampa. Yeah.
So Tampa's north, right? So it's still quite a flight. That's what, a 4 or 5 hour flight. Well, so that's week 1. Okay. Then I think it gets a little easier after that as far as the beginning of the year, because it's at Rams, which is almost like a home game for the Niners. Obviously, we all know Shanahan kind of has ownage on McVay. Then you get the New York Giants on a Thursday, but it's at home. And and I know that, man, those Thursday games always favor, especially the early season Thursdays, they favor the home team.
Yes.
So that favors the Niners. Then they get Arizona in week 4, and isn't Kyler out until like week 5 or week 6? So you're probably getting Colt McCoy. Now, I was there when Colt McCoy completed 85% of his passes against the Niners in Santa Clara a couple years ago. So I know he can beat them, but I'll take Colt McCoy every day, all day over Kyler.
You might get Clayton Tune at that point. Tune might be starting. Yeah.
That's a good point. Yeah, it might be the rookie Clayton Tune.
Yeah.
Then it's Dallas on Sunday Night Football, national TV game. That should be an incredible game. I can't wait for that. And then Cleveland, at Cleveland, where the Browns are better. And then week 7 is at Minnesota on Monday Night Football. And the thing that jumped out to me, and just looking at the first 5 or 6 games, man, Colton McKivitz better get it ready early, because you get TJ Watt, you got Aaron Donald, you Kayvon Thibodeau, you got whoever Arizona's got. I mean, Arizona's got BJ Oshulari, I guess. You've got Micah Parsons. You got Myles Garrett.
Oh, man.
I mean, you got Danielle Hunter. I mean, you got some premier rushers in that first 5 or 6 games. And I'm a big Colton McKivitz fan. I'm not really concerned about going from McGlinchey to McKivitz, especially as a pass protector. But still, that's baptism by fire. It's going to be a tough stretch.
That's a very, you know what? I really didn't even think about it when I looked at the schedule. That's a really good point by you. And we're going to know very early if this offensive line is up to the task, no doubt about it. And, one of the things that I've maintained is I don't know what McKivitz is going to be. I'm certainly not going to say that he's going to be awful or bad even. He may be pretty good. We'll find out. But I do think that those other 3 in the interior, going into their second full year starting for all 3 of them, I think they're going to take a step forward. And I think ultimately that the offensive line actually, because of that, might be a little bit better than it was last year, even if they do take a step back at right tackle. But right tackle is premier, because you're going against those pass rushers. And I mean, God knows how many injuries we have at the quarterback position, whether it's Brock Purdy, Trey Lance, or whoever's going to be back there. That's a scary proposition. So it'll be interesting to see what they do. Are they confident in him? Do they keep Kittle in to block a lot more? How does that whole thing work out? A lot of quick passes. I'm curious to see how these game plans go, but that's a really good point by you.
And then week 7 in Minnesota, I mean, that promises to be a tough battle. I was looking this one up. Minnesota, obviously a super loud dome and everything, but they went 8-1 at home last year. So, I mean, they don't lose that much at home. So that's going to be a tough one. And then I'll say this. I like the bye week.
Me
the bye
too.
week coming in week 9. Perfect. Almost can't draw it up any better. I like that. I also like the fact that the toughest game of the year in Philly, December 3rd, the Niners are going to have 10 days to prepare, because the week prior they play Thursday. So yeah, flying across country, playing Philly in Philly, cold weather game in December. that adds up for a tough one and maybe a loss. But the fact that the Niners will have extra time to prepare, I mean, maybe that's an equalizer. Maybe that's
Yeah.
somewhat of an equalizer in that matchup. That's
Yeah,
one way.
I agree with that. And also I just look at that game. I don't know if you've gone through and predicted wins and losses. I've done that.
I haven't
But
yet.
I think that game to me I have as a win. And mainly because Debo Samuel. Debo Samuel has really put the mark on his back for that game in particular, the way that he's talked all offseason. And I fully expect, assuming good health, knock on wood, let's hope Debo's available. I fully expect that he rises to the occasion. And that is, if not his best, one of his best games of the season. I could see Debo Samuel going off that game because frankly, he kind of has to the way he's talked. And I think that's enough with the extra rest to get it done in Philly. I actually think the 49ers win that game.
Yeah, I mean, I can't wait for that game, man.
Yeah,
I've
me
been waiting
neither.
for that game. I mean, nothing was more deflating than the Eagle game this last year, just because we waited and we analyzed and we talked about it, and you did, I did, we all did. We wanted that game. It was so the winner was going to the Super Bowl, and
Yeah.
then you know what? I just really thought that we were going to get like a definitive answer, and I could have lived with it either way, right? Hey, you know what? Definitively, the Niners are better than the Eagles, and Brock Purdy's this real deal, and they're going to the Super Bowl in Brock's backyard, and bring it on, everybody. Or, you know what? The Philly's just better. They're deeper, they're faster, they're better. And instead we got none of it. We got none of it. I don't know if Philly's better. I suspect they were, but I don't feel confident in that. I thought the Niners kind of held their own. I thought they had chances even without the quarterback. But I mean, we didn't get that definitive answer, and it was like the worst game of all time because it was over so early because of the situation with the injury, and knowing that you weren't going to be able to beat the Philadelphia Eagles in their place with Josh Johnson. And it's funny, I was kind of critical of Josh Johnson after that game, and his agent's a buddy of mine. He's like, "Man, why'd you got to do Josh that way?" And I got it, I got it. But then I felt as bad as I felt. I didn't feel as bad the other day when I saw Debo's like, "Hey, we played 11 against 10." I mean, that doesn't get any more critical than saying you played 11 versus 10. So maybe his agent should take it up with Debo and not necessarily worry about what I had to say about it. But I was two last thoughts on the schedule. One, I think that Seattle, week 12 in Seattle on Thanksgiving night, week 13 in Philly, December 3rd, and then week 14 home against Seattle. I think that's the toughest stretch of the year.
Mm.
I don't even know what Seattle's really going to be. And it's kind of a weird situation because you don't play them early and late like you do the other teams in the division. You play them twice in a 3-week span. So in some ways, it's who knows if Seattle's hurt by then, it could be beneficial to the Niners. Or if Seattle gets off to a slow start and has it going by then, maybe it's advantage Seattle. But I think that 3-week stretch right there, just seeing how physical Niners Seahawks battles have been, and then Niners Eagles on top, I think that's where the schedule's really tough. And then I think the Niners got one lucky break in that national TV game, Jesse, on Christmas night against the
Mm.
Ravens is here. Because
Yeah.
the Ravens, I looked this up, the Ravens have won in the last decade 78% of their home games and 43% of their road games. So it's it's night and day. I mean, they're a totally different outfit, home and road. And the fact that game is here in Northern California and not Baltimore, huge, absolutely huge. So I look at the schedule and go, well, the Pittsburgh week 1, maybe that's a bad break, but the Ravens at home on Christmas late in the year instead of in Baltimore, that's a good break. So maybe they cancel each other out.
Yeah, that's an interesting stat. Also late in the season, I mean, Lamar Jackson is dynamic and as great as he is not picture perfect health towards tail end of seasons.
Yeah.
Maybe they catch a break in that way. Not, that we're wishing that, but that's something to think about is potential. I think they have a couple tough stretches. Another stretch that I looked at was 5, 6, 7, and 8, weeks 5 through 8. They play Dallas, then they play Cleveland. And if Deshaun Watson is back to Deshaun Watson, that's all of a sudden a really tough game on the road. Then you go on the road to Minnesota, and then you come back home and play Cincy. That's another 4-game stretch that could be really, really rough. They've got a couple of them. They got a couple of them this year. I might agree that those other 3 might, if we're doing a 3-game stretch, might be it. But that 4-game stretch is not going to be easy either. This year they are going to earn it every step of the way. Not only are there some tough teams, the travel is through the roof. They got no favors. They play both on Thanksgiving and Christmas. We have to remember these are human beings. Not being with your family on 2 of the most important holidays that's going to take a toll as well. So I'm curious to see how things play out for the 49ers this year.
Yeah, no, that's a great point. I mean, I will say this, under Shanahan, I've never really felt, and maybe you have, and if you have, feel free to contradict me here, but I never felt like, man, the Niners just they no-showed. And you see teams all over the league that no-show. Like, oh my God, Green Bay no-showed like 3 different times last year, where it was like, oh my, they just rolled their jocks out there and said, well, somehow we'll figure it out. Rodgers will figure it out. The Niners don't get into these games. And I don't know if it's because of the physical nature of the way they play or the kinds of players they draft or what. But under Shanahan, I can't think of any games where I'm just like, you know what? They were emotionally, they just didn't bring it tonight. Their energy, they didn't fly around. They didn't play. I just have always felt like they've won games, they've lost games, but I've never really felt like they've no-showed. And I've seen past Niner teams where I was convinced they no-showed. Heck, I can think of some Bill Walsh teams back in the day, that no-showed some early season home games. I just haven't gotten that feeling with Shanahan's team. It seems like they play with some pretty good energy, and they seem to show up virtually every week. So we'll see.
I think, gosh, the only game that maybe, and this might be nitpicking, might have to go back to the 2019. Was it 2019 when they lost to the Falcons?
At home?
At home.
Julio Jones goal line catch.
Yeah. And I know the game was close.
That's a good call. That's a good call.
They were so much better than the Falcons.
That day.
They were flat. Very flat. I just remember that game being very, very flat. That's the only time. And even that's a little nitpicky. I agree. And I think the big reason is the defense, man. I mean, defense will keep you in a lot of games. And when you have a top 5 defense year in and year out, man, that is always going to keep you around. And I think that's probably got to be the biggest reason why. And also, Shanahan likes to run the ball. And if you have a really good defense and you can complement it with being able to control the clock in most situations, you're going to be in a really, really good situation week in and week out, and likely be the most physical team in that game. And so I think those 2 reasons are a big reason why. It's simply the way the team is built, which is, they've done a good job with the roster construction for sure.
Yeah. Yeah. And as far as the schedule, though, I think you're right. As far as the travel portion, last year was very favorable. I mean, I don't think they left the Pacific time zone after like Halloween. I mean, they were like literally
Chiefs game from the Chiefs game on, they were in the Pacific time zone, I think.
Yeah. So, I mean, they had a very favorable schedule for a West Coast team. You almost never see West Coast teams with favorable travel schedules, but this last year you did. I agree. If they're going to get it this year, they're going to earn it. And they're going to have to start faster, or they're going to dig themselves a major, major hole. Do you know a man named Twisted Clown? Because he says, Jesse, you missed my super chat.
Oh, yeah. I'm sorry, Twisted. I did. You know what? I don't know if you're noticing it, Larry, or if it's just me, but this was the first time I actually got in the comment section. And it used to, how when you pull up a super chat on YouTube, it's like yellow or green or whatever.
Right.
For this last show, I don't know if it was a one-off or whatever, but they weren't highlighted like that. They had like a gray overlay on them in the comment section on StreamYard, and then they were starred. So it was really hard for me to decipher what was what as I was going through quickly. So hopefully that was a one-off, but it makes it a lot harder to find super chats if that is the new thing that they're doing. I hope not.
Yeah, I hope that's not the new thing. Because last night I did this Warrior post game, and we had so many comments that it was just, I couldn't get to the bottom of the chat. I kept going down. I'm like, where's the bottom? Where's the bottom? Where's the bottom? I couldn't get there. And so that I need those colors. I,
That's what I'm
I
saying, and it's
I need
very
that
hard to
color to stand out.
decipher.
Yeah, that's not good.
Ugh.
On the super chat tip, let's see. We had one sitting right here. Now, did I miss it?
No, see, for me, I see one. I think there's one from Zane, but
Let me
for me,
see.
it's a light blue versus a gray. It's really hard for me. So I don't know if that's just me and I got to change settings, or if you're seeing it as well. I don't know what.
I just had one sitting right there, and it was in blue.
See?
And, and
Oh, you
then,
know what? Here, let me say this though. If you've
oh
got
wait,
the
I
same
think I
setup as
started. I
me,
started.
I
That's what
I
happened.
just noticed this. They star them automatically. So right to the right, you can go to the starred ones and go directly to them. That's smart. Okay, I like that. Never mind. I do
Oh,
like
there
it.
we go. There we go.
Yep.
Okay, so we get push 49er daddy says Lance will start week 1, go 4-0 and not give the job back. Wow. Okay, we'll get
Damn.
into that in just a
Okay.
second.
I like it.
We got Cless Limperio says, Jesse, my brother, I gotta hear you gotta hear why you think we will lose at home to the Cowboys,
Yeah.
but beat the Eagles in Philly. I think it will be the opposite. Rock on, guys.
I like it. I like it. Yeah,
And,
so I've got the 49ers going 13-4. I
okay.
do think that they're going to lose to Dallas. I just think Dallas is a really good team, and the 49ers certainly have gotten the better of them the last couple times that they've played. But I don't I think it's really hard to beat good teams routinely. And so I just think that maybe they jump up on the 49ers that night. They just have enough to get it done. And then my reasoning for Philly, I did give a little bit ago, but I just think they've put a target on their back for that game. The crap that the 49ers talked about that Philadelphia Eagles team, not only through the Super Bowl, but still to this point are going out of their way to throw shade at Philly. They have to come through in that game. They've put too much pressure on themselves, and I think they're going to rise to the occasion and come back and beat Philly with 10 days to rest going into that game. So I think they beat Philly.
I think the Niners will lose some games that people aren't thinking, but I like them to beat
Maybe.
Philly and Dallas. The thing
Okay.
about Dallas is Dallas doesn't stop the run, and
Yeah.
Mozzie Smith, who they just drafted, is a huge hulking figure, and they're hoping he can stop the run. But I don't even think he stops the run all that well. So we'll see. But and then Dallas, I don't think is going to run it as well this year with no Zeke. And I think Pollard is a complimentary back. I don't see the every down back there. Besides, I mean, you have Pollard, but they signed. I mean, they drafted Deuce Vaughn. He's tiny. He's 5'6", 170 pounds. I don't see. I think they needed another back. Like big time back, like a Bijan or somebody, a star back. And we'll see. We'll see. I think they. I don't think Pollard is an every down guy, especially coming off the injury last year. We'll see what that looks like.
Yeah.
And Zane says, "Hey guys, what do you think is the best game to go to this year?" I'm thinking Sunday Night Football against
There you
Dallas.
go. There you go.
Well, best game to go to. The weather in Northern California is super hot in the early season. So I would say, maybe that home game against the New York Giants at night could be a really nice Thursday night home game as far as weather. Um, Other than that, I would say the Bengals game at the end of October. I bet you would be kind of a fun game to go to. I think that Baltimore game on Christmas night. My wife will not be excited about that when I tell her, but that I think we get great weather. I mean, but that's the one thing about the West Coast, right? I mean, late December, we could have it could be rainy and ugly, but it could be just glorious. It could be just sunny and perfect. So I would say, Niners Ravens is always a pretty good matchup. All right, what did you think? Let's switch off of the schedule. Unless you have another comment on the schedule. What
No,
anything? Do you have anything else that you want to get into on the
I was
schedule?
gonna agree and say if I could choose a home game to go to, it would probably be the Bengals game. I My thing is that usually if I'm gonna spend money to go to a game, because it's hard. It's not like it's easy, right? I'm all the way on the East Coast, so no matter what, I'm traveling to go to a game. But if I'm gonna go to a game, I want to either see really good players on the other side as well. I'm not just looking at the 49ers. I want to see some superstars on the other side. And the Bengals provide that. They're going to give you Joe Burrow and Chase and Mixon and a whole plethora of guys. Or I want an experience and I want to go somewhere with some history. And so for me, I'm choosing the Steelers game week 1. It's the season opener. That's a big deal. But also the Steelers franchise has a ton of history. I love that franchise. They're a big part of the NFL. And so for me, like Steelers 49ers, what a great way to kick off the season. And so I'm going the history route when I'm going to see Pittsburgh. But if I was going to go to a home game, I think Cincy would probably be the one. I want to see some superstars.
Joe Burrow,
Mhm.
Jamar Chase. I mean, that's a good one there. Michael Monahan says it was nice to see Kyle actually saying good things about Trey Lance
For sure.
for a change. Okay, so let's get into that for a second. There was the Dwight Clark event, the which is awesome, by the way. The fact that the 49ers have that Golden Heart Foundation is awesome. And you know what? If To me, I can't say enough good things about the 49ers for starting the Golden Heart Foundation. I hope every team in the league copies it. The reality is quarterbacks make big money in the NFL. Everybody else needs to have a second career, and it's hard to have a second career when you're eggs are scrambled and you've been hit and you're walking around with a artificial knee and you know what I mean. So it's not easy for everybody in the NFL after their career's over. Their body sometimes beaten up, their head sometimes is beaten up, and they don't have enough money to get to the finish line in life. And so a lot of these players have to seek out a second career, which is really kind of bizarre and disturbing when you think about how much money the NFL generates and how popular the sport is. It tells me that the players need a better negotiator. But it also tells me that I'm glad the 49ers have created the Golden Heart Fund, and they had a Golden Heart Fund foundation event where they raise money for their ex-Niners and guys who just, as they say, Jesse, it's not a handout, it's a hand up. And but yet there's so many players, and talking to Keena Turner and Guy McIntyre, the people that run this thing for the 49ers, the alumni people, they're like, you know what? There's more than a couple of Niner alums who just, they've fallen on hard times and maybe a business goes south or a relationship or something, and they find themselves in a bad financial way. And the Golden Heart Fund is a way to help out guys who played for this organization. So I'm a huge fan of it. Love Eddie D for starting it. Love Jed for continuing it. And the fact that they had this legacy event last night was very cool. And at the event, Kyle Shanahan spoke with Matt Mayoko and Laura Britt on stage for about 30 plus minutes and a lot of interesting comments. I mean, it was really the first time we've heard him say anything about Trey Lance other than Trey's a hell of a guy. You know,
It
they
really
I
was.
mean, Lynch has said he's a hell of a guy. Shanahan said he's a hell of a guy. They just have never said anything else about Trey, and it's kind of left us all kind of guessing. Do they like him? Do they not like him? They're talking up Darnold. They're talking up Purdy. What's the deal? How do they feel about Lance? So I think a lot of 49er fans just feel good that Trey Lance has not been banished, that Trey Lance still has an opportunity to win the starting job, that Trey Lance is improving in the eyes of Kyle Shanahan, and that he's a viable option. I think everybody else, nobody wants anything more than that. Even Trey himself, Jesse. I don't think Trey wants any guarantees or any promises. He just doesn't want to be banished and wants to still be in that fight, for the starting job. And Shanahan didn't guarantee him anything but he didn't also, squash it and say, no, Brock's our guy. Everybody else need not apply. I mean, he was complimentary of all three of his quarterbacks. The question is, what does it mean?
Yeah, and it's tough to know what it means because we just don't know the timeline on Brock, and quite frankly, they don't know the timeline on Brock, and I think that makes it really really hard. I mean, really for me, all I took away from it was kind of what we knew, which was, hey, Brock's the front runner. We'll see what Trey and Sam can do before Brock comes back, and depending on when Brock comes back, there might be a chance for somebody to play a couple games and take over the job. Like that's basically the gist of what I got. But how he went about it, how he talked about Trey Lance, one thing is certain, no doubt about it. There hasn't been a lot that they've been able to see in this short amount of time that they've been with the team. but they have now been able to at least see, and it's very different to see versus to watch videos or whatever. They've now seen Trey Lance throw up close and side by side with Sam Darnold. Very, very early in this process. But one thing that I notice is John Lynch, for the first time in, I mean, ever, went out of his way to say, hey, I think people are going to be surprised by Trey Lance here. And I don't think enough people talked about that. And then you had the Ian Rappaport stuff. And then Kyle Shanahan echoed those sentiments yesterday saying, hey, we like what we see from Trey Lance. This is the best position he's ever been in with this team. You know, he doesn't have to battle with an injury that is messing with his throwing motion. This is the best mechanically we've seen him look, is what I gather from him. And at the very least, regardless of what happens with Trey Lance, he is in the best position he could possibly put himself in at this point in time to come out and compete for whatever spot he is fighting for in the eyes of Kyle Shanahan. And that's great to hear.
I mean, I never needed anybody to say anything. I don't know about you, but I never needed Kyle to say anything because he didn't say Brock Purdy had a chance to win the starting job, but Brock Purdy got in there and played well and earned it. So it's like to me, it's understood. NFL football is meritocracy. It is a meritocracy. It is a performance-based deal. If Trey goes in there and throws 15 touchdown passes, no picks, and they route everybody by 40 points, he ain't coming out. Yeah. He's not coming out. No matter what Brock did last year, he's not coming out. Now, if he plays, I mean, and that's obviously, you know, that might, some people would say, well, come on, Krug, that's pie in the sky. You've set up a pie in the sky scenario. Okay, fine. But if he plays pretty good, then there's going to be some debate. If he plays poorly, then it's going to be like, Brock, get back in there. Or maybe Sam Darnold. Maybe we're going to see Sam Darnold. So I just have never, I've never really feared about like, oh, Trey's not going to. There's a lot of people, and I can tell by the urgency in their voice that they're really panicked by this. Trey's not going to get an opportunity. Brock, you know, Sam Darnold is sitting courtside with George Kittle and Christian McCaffrey. Trey's on the outs. You know, Brock's on the in. That's, you don't earn the starting job sitting courtside at an NBA game. All right, you don't. So all that is just a bunch of garbage. I understand the optics, right? It looks like, oh, Brock's on the Trey's on, or Darnold's on the in and Trey's maybe on the out, and but none of that really matters. It really doesn't matter. All that matters is, do you lead your team? Does your team score points? Do you win games and produce points? If you win games and produce points, you're going to play. And if you don't win games and you don't produce points, I don't care if you bought everybody, you paid for everybody's season tickets to the Warriors. It doesn't matter. It won't matter. So I've never really feared this, like, Trey's never going to be given an opportunity again. No. Come on, man. Everybody in camp is competing. Everybody. They're all competing. And whoever the best players are going to play. Now, Brock, you could argue, wasn't really competing last year, I guess, because he really had no way to earn that job. But he earned a roster spot by how he played in the preseason. He didn't earn the starting job, but he earned a roster spot. And I just think if Trey plays well, I don't see any way in hell that Trey Lance doesn't beat out Sam Darnold. So I think, and if Brock Purdy's going to miss a month, and we don't know, maybe Brock Purdy's back week 1. But if Brock Purdy is going to miss a month, I think that's a month we're going to see Trey Lance. I'd be shocked if we're going to see Sam Darnold. So what do you make of Ian Rappaport? Is Ian Rappaport, going off on his own? Is he doesn't, Jesse, it just doesn't seem like he's the guy who does anything but repeat what other people say. He's not an evaluator. People are like, well, he's just giving us his own opinion. I don't think so, fellas. I really don't. I don't believe Ian Rappaport even has football opinions like that. I think he's repeating what somebody told him. But Doesn't mean that person who told him that opinion isn't going to change if Trey starts to play it better, or if Sam doesn't look as good by comparison, or it's a fluid situation. But I'm not in the camp that's like Ian Rappaport made this whole thing up. He has no credibility. He has nothing he's saying has any credence. He has no sources. He's just giving us his opinion of the Niner quarterbacks from afar. That's what a lot of people have spun this into in the last 24 hours. And I don't think that's the case.
Okay.
What do you think?
I'm somewhere in the middle. First of all, respect Ian Rappaport and what he does. He's one of the guys that when free agency comes around or anytime big moves are to be made in the NFL, trade deadline, whatever, I'm turning on the notifications and making sure that I got him coming across my Twitter timeline, right? So I wouldn't do that if I didn't respect what he brings to the table as far as a breaking news guy and an insider and just being plugged in the NFL. So I want to make sure that I'm clear about that. But over the last couple years, more so than ever, and we've seen it a little bit with Adam Schefter at times, but we're really seeing it lately with Ian Rappaport, where he's going off on his own. He's doing the Pat McAfee show. And in fact, when this last little bit of news broke about how the 49ers had reached out to him and were like, hey man, why so down on Trey Lance and so up on Sam Darnold? He was hosting the show in Pat McAfee's absence. Okay. So he's not sitting up there for 3 hours giving you breaking news. He's giving his opinion. This is a little bit different than what we've seen from him in the past. And that's totally fine. I have zero issue. I don't want to put somebody in a box and say, hey, you can only be the breaking news guy. But what I think happened here with Ian Rappaport is he definitely knew that the 49ers had taken calls about Trey Lance. And he took that factual information that we were able to cross-reference that. Lynch talked about it as well. He took that factual information with other factual information about Sam Darnold being signed day one and the way that they talk about Sam Darnold. And he took some of those facts and then he turned it into an opinion based off of the facts, much like you or I would do. And he mixed those opinions and sandwiched them around some of the facts and wasn't really clear about, hey, this is my opinion or this is fact or am I breaking news? We just assume that, oh, it's Ian Rappaport. He's an insider. He's got the goods, and whatever he talks about can't solely be an opinion. It's got to be based off of some facts. And so that's the way that I read the situation. There was definitely some facts sandwiched in there, but there was some opinion. And even up until day 3, and this is when I started to kind of figure out, like, wait a minute, this is an opinion of his. Because even on day 3, and correct me if I'm wrong, Larry, but I know that you thought that Trey Lance was going to get traded during the draft.
Right.
But even you said, hey, if it doesn't happen by the end of day 2, like it's not happening during the draft. Am I right about that?
Well, no, the only thing I thought we might see on day 3 would be like if like a team like the Commanders said, we'll give you Montez Sweat and a 5th
or
round
Jamar
pick.
Chase or so. Okay.
Or not Chase Young. Right.
Okay.
If they were willing to give Chase Young or Montez Sweat, and I thought maybe it would be like a player, a day 3 pick, and maybe a conditional pick next year to kind of protect everybody. I thought there was a chance. But once the draft came and went, and really, I'll say this, once Houston and Tennessee, 2 teams that both knew Trey from their time in San Francisco, once they both passed and went in different directions and still filled their quarterback need, I think at that point, I didn't really think Trey would get moved. I mean, and at this point, the only teams I see as even viable would be like Minnesota if they really love Trey and the hometown story, and he's from Marshall, and because it'd be very popular. It'd be a very popular move there, and maybe Washington if they don't like the kid from Carolina, who's what's his name again? I always forget his name. Sam Howell.
Sam Howell, yeah.
Yeah, so if Washington didn't like Sam Howell, I could see them having, and obviously Martin Mayhew is the GM there, so there's a connection to Trey, and then Minnesota. Those to me are the only 2 spots that I could even see, but Go ahead. But my whole thing
Yeah.
on the Rappaport thing is so weird is that going into the draft, he kept saying, well, it's probably not going to happen now. I mean, his reporting on Trey and this quote unquote trade was seemed very sure of himself. Like he was like somebody had told him something. Didn't seem like he was reading tea leaves. It seemed like he had sources. And I kind of know him as a guy who seemed like he has sources. So I kind of assumed he has sources.
For sure.
But then also it's like, okay, if you don't have sources, then why would you be throwing out such specifics like it's not going to happen until later this summer? And then even today, when I heard Rich Eisen talking about it on his show, he's like, well, if Trey Lance is going to get traded, it's going to be at the cut down. It's going to, so now, I mean, it's like, I don't know. I don't know what to think, Jesse. I'm not sure where, I know there's a lot of Niner fans who are like, oh, thank God he's here. He's not going to be traded. But I don't know that I would necessarily bank on that. But I at the same time, if he plays really well, why the hell would they trade him? Why would you trade Trey Lance if he plays well? And if he plays poorly, who's really going to want him? So I don't know. I'm not sure where this goes. I really don't.
Yeah, I think, the overarching point was that, even up through day 3, and it's like, it's coming, it's coming, it's coming. He's gonna, I still think he's gonna get traded. And then it was like, well, now I'm gonna go. So I really think, like I said, I'm not trying to take credibility away from him. Obviously, he has connections in the league. I don't know whether or not he has connections with the 49ers or not. That's really beside the point. There is a lot of information out there, and I can understand why somebody would read things and think that there was a possibility that he was going to get moved on draft or during the draft and come up with that thought process. I really can. But I just think in this scenario, he wasn't much different than you or I. You were able to come up with the same exact thought process, Larry. And I'm not here to say if you have sources or not, or what you heard and didn't, but you came up with the same thought process he did. It's not that far-fetched to think that, yeah, he took some facts that he knew that we all ended up finding out about and turned that into an assumption that he would be traded, and he wasn't. And it was nothing more than that. That's kind of where I'm at with the Ian Rappaport thing on this situation.
No Flav says, hi, Larry. For dinner, Flav had boiled chicken breast with white rice, a glass of milk, and vanilla ice cream for dessert. Oh, my goodness. My goodness.
The most basic dinner ever. All right.
Where do you think the 49ers are now with this? Do you think Brock's going to be back? I mean, people are saying we don't know, right? Well, we're not going to know for a month or so until we get an update. So this idea, I've had people in the chat going, they think Brock's going to be back by week 1. Well, I know Shanahan said that, but I mean, what's that based on? That's not based on anything, right? That's just based on hope and good vibes and good, he's working out with a towel right now. And, he's working on his motion, his flexibility, his range of motion, but there's nothing concrete to point to a week 1 start for Brock Purdy, right?
No, there's definitely nothing concrete. I wouldn't be shocked by it. I will say that, but really the way that I see this thing playing out is I think that he's going to be quote unquote cleared maybe a week or 2 before the season starts, but there's still a couple weeks of, hey, we got to get you into competitive throwing versus, hey, you were throwing on the sideline, you're fully cleared, the arm strength is there, but now we got to see you do it competitively, and we got to get you in competition mode. We can't just throw you out there week 1 with live bullets and say, hey, take it over because you're healthy. So I see a scenario where he's cleared, but he needs those live bullets for a few weeks. And they may say, hey, you know what? The way the schedule starts out, we got 2 road games. We got that Thursday night game. And then we got an easy one. I think it's against Arizona. I could be wrong. We think we're going to be okay here. And because of some of the travel and short week games, it's probably best that we start you out on the pup. Even though you're healthy, we get you the live bullets for 4 weeks. And then we figure out where we're at. Is Trey good? Is Sam good? When you're back, do we think that what you proved last year is better than what they've put on film? And they'll make the decision then. That's that's ultimately how I see it playing out. But shoot, if he's back week 1, he's back week 1. He may be, but I don't think there's any certainty. No, definitely not. There's not certainty here.
Caesar says, is it possible Kyle Shanahan ran Trey Lance a lot because of the broken finger? I guess anything's possible. To me though, when you hear him talk about Trey Lance, he doesn't even describe Trey Lance as a quarterback. He describes him as a dual threat quarterback. So obviously he's got a different idea of how he should be utilized and what his strengths and weaknesses are. I've never been comfortable with the way the 49ers have used Trey Lance. Trey Lance, in my mind, is an athlete, but he's a pocket passer. I don't see him as Michael Vick. I don't see him as Lamar. I don't see him as some dynamic, awesome runner. I just see him as athletic. Is Mahomes a dynamic runner? Well, he can be if you give him an avenue in the fourth quarter, and he'll take it and bust you 25 yards down the middle for a key first down. I think Trey could do the exact kind of. I think he's got what Mahomes has. He has, where he's got the ability to be an athlete and find a lane and take it. But he's not, and he can buy time with explosive movement within the pocket to give himself more time to look downfield. But I don't think of him as Lamar or Vic. I think of him more like Mahomes.
Yeah, I agree with you completely on that. I mean, I think he's probably Mahomes plus in the run game. I don't think Mahomes has ever touched like 500 yards rushing in a season. I think Trey Lance could get there, but I think he's more likely to do it through scrambling. When he's the one that decides to run, he is very decisive and quick twitched. You see it a lot more. You see the explosiveness. You see he knows where to go and he's comfortable running. When he's forced to run, I mean, it's not that he's not athletic, but he looks very unathletic because his decision making, he doesn't feel comfortable. He slows himself down by just looking around and not being sure of himself. And so the athleticism he has is completely gone out the window because the game goes so quickly. And if you hesitate, it's over for you. So when you see him scramble versus run, it's two different quarterbacks out there. You look at the very first play against Arizona, Larry, when he had that pressure coming off the edge. I mean, that was a bang, bang play. And he scooted up the middle, no issues. Looked very athletic, got to the sideline, protected himself, stuck the ball out, picked up a first down on the very first play of the game. That was because it was a passing play and he was comfortable. He saw it and he was choosing and dictating when to run versus being told when to run. And very, very different skill set.
It's interesting. I get the feeling that Trey supports Brock and that Brock supports Trey.
I agree.
But I don't get the feeling that there's more than a small percentage of the Niner fan base that support both. Like, I consider myself a supporter of both. I want to see the Niners win that 6th Lombardi. I really don't care who the quarterback is. I can't believe it will be Sam Darnold, but if it's Sam Darnold, so be it. I didn't think it was going to be Brock Purdy, but I was not happy the day Brock Purdy was drafted. But you know what? He won me over. He absolutely won me over this last year. Now I'm a total believer. And I'm a believer in Trey Lance. I just don't know if it's going to happen this year. I actually was convinced, Jesse, that really this wasn't about Trey or Brock or anything that Brock does that Trey doesn't do, or any skill set that Trey doesn't have that Brock has. I just think if you said to me, tell me what you really think's going on here, I just think that the 49ers are in a position now where John Lynch and Kyle Shanahan are feeling some heat. I'm not saying that they should be. They've been in 3 of the last 4 NFC Championship games. But I do think that there's a high level of achievement expected by Jed and the ownership. They want that 6th Lombardi. And this organization judges itself on Super Bowl victories, not Super Bowl appearances. So even though they went to the Super Bowl, that's not enough. They got to get it done. And if they get it done, I think Lynch is a made man. Shanahan's a made man. I think Jed is probably a made man with Dr. John and Denise if they get it done. So I think they all are on the same page in that They're all in it to win it. They're all in it for that Lombardi, which is good. But I just get the vibe that John and Kyle don't have any bad feelings at all about Trey. It's just that Brock, they know, fits the urgency of their we got to win it this year timeline. Partially because of the pressure that I think exists, partially because of Trent Williams, being a key guy, a key figure in their whole championship idea. He's a key figure. He may only have a year left, maybe 2 years left. So I think there's some serious urgency to win the Super Bowl. And I just think that they're all in on Brock over Trey or Sam simply because his timeline jives with theirs. And I don't think it has anything to do with they believe in Brock and they don't believe in Trey. I just think that they believe that Brock's ready right now and they believe Trey is going to be ready, but that he's not ready right now. And they don't want to give away any more seasons because of quarterback injuries, quarterback development, quarterback anything. And I think that's the whole reason behind Brock's R1 and these guys are 2 and 3, 3 and 2, whatever way you want to slice it. I don't think it has to do with anything other than they see Brock on their timeline, and their timeline is going to be prioritized over Trey's timeline. That's how I see it.
Yeah, and I don't think you're wrong there. I mean, I think Kyle Shanahan said as much really yesterday. If you listen to what he said that he believes he's talked specifically about Trey, and then he threw Sam in there, but specifically about Trey, he said, "Hey," which is interesting. The way that he talked about Trey is the way that I've always talked about Trey. Is he basically felt like, hey, if Trey had started, we were going to give him all of last year. And if Trey had started, he almost made it sound like, hey, we were willing to go through the bumps and bruises, but we felt like come the end of the season, he would be this quarterback that we really drafted him to be. We saw that light at the end of the tunnel, and we were willing to see that through. And likely we would have been willing to see it through again this year because of the injury, but Brock Purdy came out of nowhere and he showed us. And so now we know that we can win with Brock Purdy. We've seen it. And we are trying to win now. We know we can win with Brock. We do believe that we can win with Trey as well. But having a belief that you can win with Trey versus seeing it that you've been able to win with Brock, it's really hard to just say, all right, Brock, you can't play because we think we can also win with this guy, even if we believe that ultimately he is going to be a better player than you. We're trying to win right now. And I think that was pretty clear from Kyle yesterday. That's exactly what I got from him. And it was kind of nice to see because that was really the pulse that I had on this whole situation was exactly that. That, listen, I feel like Brock Purdy could be Mr. Right now. Maybe Trey Lance in the future could be Mr. Right long term. He might be the better overall play, but I understand why you would go with a guy that you've seen versus having faith and just going all in on a guy that you haven't seen. That's a really hard thing to do, and I understand it.
And the irony of it is that the guy that you've seen in Brock Purdy may not be that guy anymore based on this injury that he just had. Yeah, so there's that element as well. So you have to proceed with caution if you're the 49ers in this situation. In some ways, Jesse, I love what they've done at quarterback from the standpoint of when last year ended. I don't know about you, but I'm sitting there watching the last 3 quarters of that Philly game, and I'm saying to myself, I don't know what has to happen, but the 49ers have to have 3 quarterbacks next year that they can win games with. Not some super raw rookie that they can't win with, not some veteran just hanging on because he lives locally and we'll go with him because he's a nice guy and he'll be a good guy in the room. No, it's got to be guys you can win with. And I feel like at least in Purdy and Darnold and Lance, you have 3 candidates for quarterback all right there in the prime years of their career. And at least you got 3 guys. You got 3 real quarterbacks. Nobody's like, he's a CFL transfer. He was an XFL. No, like, he was good 7 years ago and now he's really just here to hold the clipboard. No, everybody in that room's got to be able to play if needed. and mission accomplished. I mean, I don't think highly of Darnold, but obviously they do. And for that reason alone, it's kind of intriguing. I'm eager to see what they see, and I'm eager to see what Darnold looks like with Kyle calling the plays and with all these great weapons. I mean, the game, we know the game's easier when you have great weapons and when you have a great play caller and a great defense. Sam Darnold now has that. I mean, in my opinion, this is it for Sam Darnold. If Sam Darnold doesn't succeed here, he's going to go sell insurance or do whatever he's going to do. He's done, right? If this doesn't work here, if he's bad here, he's bad. And I think it's official.
Yeah, I agree with that. It's funny because as you were talking, a memory of my father popped into my mind, and I was about 17, maybe 18 years old, and my car had broken down, and he had come to tow it home. And he'd got this big thick rope, and he's just tying this rope to the front of my car, just tying and tying and tying. I'm like, God, you sure are tying a lot, Dad. And he said something to me that really stands out in this situation. He said, son, if you don't know how to tie a knot, tie a lot. And that situation rings so true with this quarterback position. We don't know if the 49ers have a guy, Larry. We have no idea. We don't know if any of these guys are even going to be on the roster in 4 seasons, let alone are any of these guys going to be the starting quarterback in 4 seasons. We don't know. It's so early in the process for 2 of them. And one of them, sure, he has a lot of talent, Sam Darnold, but we don't know if he's ever gonna get over these turnover woes that he's had, regardless of the talent. So what they've done is, hey, we don't necessarily know how to tie a knot here at the quarterback position. We don't have a guy, but we're going to tie a lot. And we're going to get 3 guys that we think are talented. And one of them is bound to be healthy and pan out by the end of this season. And that's what we're hoping for. That's the way that I see the quarterback situation.
No, I think you see it right. It was interesting. Grant had his whole thing, pump and dump. Is that what he was going with early in the week? Yeah. And then he quickly backtracked off that after yesterday's Shanahan news. But it's they've left us in a position. The weird thing about the whole Rappaport thing and all this quarterback conjecture. John Lynch has his own Twitter account. If Ian Rappaport was so freaking wrong that that Trey Lance was going to be moved, John Lynch could have put that to bed within 5 seconds of Ian even talking about it. He could have easily just tweeted out, you know what? Ian's been talking about this, and Ian's really credible, and we love Ian, but Trey's going to be here, folks, and just want everybody to know that Trey is going to be here. So they could have put this whole thing to bed. So, and do they want that dangling out there? No. So that tells me that they were considering trading him. Otherwise, they would have just put it to rest, right? When they just said, hey, you know what? He ain't going anywhere. They put the Bosa thing to rest at the presser. They put the Ayuk thing to rest. They could have put the Trey thing to rest. Instead, not only did they not put it to rest, they cleared $11 million in cap room going into the draft, giving them the potential flexibility to consummate a trade during the 3-day event, and they just didn't. So, it's interesting. I know now it kind of plays like they were never going to move him. It's like, well, wait, I don't, can we say that? I mean, no, and like, what do you make of, to me, the 2 most, if you say, what are the wildest things that have happened this entire offseason? I would say, number 1, Kyle Shanahan telling us with a straight face and without laughing that Sam Darnold has as good a skill set as any quarterback he's ever seen. I mean, what? That's amazing. And then Matt Mayoko saying that Sam Darnold might be the best thrower of the football the 49ers organization has ever seen. And I understand the difference between thrower of the football and quarterback. He wasn't saying Sam Darnold's better than Joe Montana, but he was saying that he throws the ball better than Joe Montana, who Dwight Clark, the late Dwight Clark, literally told me while we were playing golf that Joe would come out of the huddle and be like, hey, Dwight, should I put it on the 8 or should I put it on the 7? I mean, like, what side do you want it on? That's how accurate Joe Montana was. And now we're going to talk about Sam Darnold as the best thrower of the football. But I understood what Matt was saying. It was somewhat of a nuanced opinion that he's had to walk back because of all the backlash that he's gotten about it. But those are wild statements. What do you make of those two statements?
They are wild statements, and I want to be clear. I again, I do it. It's interesting because last year we had a similar situation with Debo Samuel. You remember when he requested a trade, and he never walked it back, by the way, and it did later come out in a video, behind the scenes video, that he did request a trade, and that was factual. But a lot of people were mad if you even talked about the possibility of Debo being traded. It's like, oh, well, there's no way Debo's going anywhere. It's like, well, 0% chance from a guy that did request a trade and doesn't have a contract. I wouldn't put the chance at zero. Like, I respect that you don't think that there's any shot. And then, of course, he doesn't get traded and these people feel vindicated. But that doesn't mean that there was never a chance. And that's the way that I look at the Trey Lance thing. I do think that there was a real possibility there. If they had gotten the right call at the right time, definitely. I definitely think that there was a possibility. And that's where Ian Rappaport was right. And John Lynch didn't deny it. He had a chance to deny it at the press conference a couple days before the draft. And he gave it validity, said, hey, look, yeah, we've taken some calls, but it's really not that big of a deal. But you've taken calls, which means you are open to hearing about it. So I think that was very real. But then to parlay that into, oh, well, Sam Darnold's the front runner, and if Trey's around, it doesn't really matter. Sam Darnold's going to start, and then you got Chris Sims saying it. Then you got Matt Mayoko saying his stuff. I think that's where the 49ers had to come out and say, listen, that's great. We love Sam Darnold also, but let's be clear here. We do also like Trey Lance, and we think not only is there a chance, regardless of how big this chance is or isn't, not only is there a chance that Trey Lance is quarterback 2, but he might be quarterback 1. Like, let's not write this kid completely off. And based off the small sample size, he looks better than he's ever looked that we've seen him to this point. So he's got a chance here. That's all they're doing. Like I said, I think that Ian definitely had some facts in there, but then there was some tea leaves that he was reading, and I think that he just read them wrong. And I think a lot of people, he's not the only one. Like I said, if Chris Sims comes out and says, yep, Sam Darnold's definitely going to win that starting job if Brock Purdy's not around, and you said, who was it? Was just talking about it like 2 or 3 days ago. Rich Eisen saying the same thing. Matt Mayoko, who's like seems like he's the most plugged in, is coming out and laying those things out. I get why people would draw that conclusion, but I think the 49ers are looking at it a little bit differently. And I would also say, I think it's a pretty safe bet. This doesn't mean that he's going to win the job if Brock's not here, but I would almost guarantee that first media session that you guys get where the quarterbacks throw, Trey Lance, not Sam Darnold, will be taking that first rep. And I think that we can all agree on that. And it almost seems like most people think that that is not the way that this is going to play out. I would be shocked if that wasn't the case.
I'm so eager to see what he looks like in camp. You know, the biggest improvement is typically year 1 to year 2. We don't even know how much Trey improved because we got the monsoon game and then he got knocked out. And everything in the preseason, you're not really game planning or scheming. So who knows what he was? Who knows how much he improved? I can't wait to see it this year. I mean, I think it's going to be absolutely riveting. Mr. Bell says Trey Lance is a pocket passer. Thank you for saying that. Here's $10. Thank you.
Nice.
I'll say it again. Keep throwing another 10 in there. Now, Flav says starting Trey for 4 games, which would double his total over the past 4 years, just to give way to Purdy would be dumb. Should play someone who's actually played this century. Sam's going to start. Well, You know what? The nice thing about it is these guys are going to be working out side by side, and you're going to have a real good look at it. And I'm going to have a real good look at it this summer. And I'll be sharing with you, and Jesse will, and Grant will, and everybody else who's there is going to be sharing with you on a regular basis what it looks like. I mean, I was saying what it looked like last year, that, that there was huge inconsistencies day to day, series to series, throw to throw from Trey Lance, and that I thought Purdy looked awesome. But I still didn't think that Trey was going to like fall on his face or anything. I just saw inconsistency. And to me, for a young quarterback to have some inconsistency is not It's hardly like, oh my God, you're saying he's inconsistent. He has one starting season since high school.
Right.
It's the NFL. You don't have this mercurial ride to the top. It's not a Disney movie. It's reality. MF says Larry wasn't happy when Latu was drafted. Yeah, well, I didn't like Latu. I'll say this: I still to this moment think that there were a lot better players on the board when the Niners went with the Alabama tight end. But I will say this: I like the fact that Scott McLuhan, who's a great personnel evaluator, had a second round grade on Latu. That at least makes me pause. Because that tells me that at least somebody who gets paid, has gotten paid a lot of money to evaluate, had a higher grade than I had on him, and sees something in him that I don't see. So he's comparing him to Tony Gonzalez and saying that he's got basketball player fluidity and so on and so forth. Maybe he's right. Maybe Latu is going to be a nice player. I haven't talked to you since the draft. Give me your thoughts on the draft. What'd you like? What didn't you like? Give me your big takeaways on the draft.
I was going to ask you the same thing about Moody. Where your mind was at for that? Why don't you answer that for me, and then I'll give you my thoughts on the draft.
Well, here, I used to be a guy who used to be super concerned with, value. Where did you get him? Did you get him here? Did you get him there? And then an old buddy of mine said, you know what? Here's the way I like to evaluate drafts. I like to go through and look at the entire class, every pick that they made, including every round, and all the undrafted guys, and just count how many players that I think are NFL players, either great players or contributors, and count them and see how many players they're really adding to their team, and how, as opposed to how many guys I could picture getting cut. So, in other words, it's not as important to me anymore what round you go in. And I'll give you an example. In this particular draft, like Mel Kiper had that Joey Fisher offensive tackle from Shepherd going to the Niners like 10 days before the draft in his 3-round mock draft. And he had him going to the Niners at 99. Mm-hmm. And he went undrafted, and the Niners signed him as an undrafted free agent. Moody, I would have liked to have gotten as an undrafted free agent, but the fact that they took him, right there around 100, I'm okay with. I mean, I didn't love it at the time. I was like, what the fuck? You're going kicker right now? But I will say this, it's not really a third. It's really, those comp picks are fourths, and the fourth round is the round that NFL people will start looking at punters, kickers, specialists, return men. That is the round where, okay, this is now officially day 3. So even though it technically happened on day 2, it's the kind of pick that's really more of a day 3 pick. So you got Moody in the 3rd round, and you got a guy who I thought could have gone in the 3rd or 4th round. You got him as an undrafted guy. So I'm okay with it. I'm okay as long as Moody. The one thing I do like about Moody is my buddies who are Michigan fans say this guy's just such a money kicker. And then his nickname's Money, but he was 4 for 4 in the playoffs. And I just think, Jesse, we're so spoiled as a fan base. We expect every 49er postseason kick to go through the uprights. That's when true. You have that high of a standard, you better get a good kicker. Now, I would have loved it if they had gotten like an Anders Carlson, Daniel Carlson's brother, in the 6th or 7th round, like the Packers did, or Chad Ryland, 6th, 7th round. And I don't like inventing needs when you have a bunch of real needs. Like, you could have signed Robbie Gould and you wouldn't even have had a kicker need. Instead, you wind up using a 3rd round pick on a kicker. That kind of rubs me wrong. But at the end of the day, if they get their 10-year kicker and this guy's the guy, I mean, if he's Roberto Aguayo, then they never should invest another pick in a kicker ever again.
Yeah.
But if he winds up being solid, 10-year starter, some, Janikowski kind, I mean, how could you be against it? I mean, having a good kicker is vital, and I get no problem with them taking a kicker in the the after the 3rd round compensatory round, if they love them. But it better hit. That's all I got to say. It better hit. Otherwise, they look bad.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, I think that's my issue too, is you look at the landscape of the NFL, and when you look at starting kickers, a majority of them are actually undrafted free agents, including Tucker. So chances are that the best kicker in this draft, just from a percentage standpoint, was actually undrafted, We don't even know who he is. He's going to go compete. He's going to win a job, and he's going to be the best kicker in this draft. That's statistically speaking, that is the most likely thing to happen. Now, there is a chance that Moody is the best kicker in this draft, and that would be great. I think there's a scenario where Moody is a good player, but it was still a reach. I think both can be true in this scenario. And, the argument for Moody, which I heard on draft night, because I was not happy with that pick at all. But the
I
argument
know.
for Moody,
I was reading your
oh,
tweets, and I was like,
not
man,
happy.
Jesse's hot.
Not happy. But the argument for him was, hey, who were they going to draft that was going to contribute more this year than a guy that they're going to need 35 times minimum? That's not including extra points. And I'm like, yeah, it's a very good point. But then the flip side of that is, if that position is so important and is going to be needed so much, we know that when you get in the third round, yeah, you want it to be a good player. But as we've seen, a lot of these guys don't pan out in the third round. So if you're going to have a guy not pan out in round 3, wouldn't you rather it be a backup corner than the guy that you're going to need to rely on all season long to win you games potentially? That's where my pushback is. And to your point, Robbie Gould was out there. Maybe he doesn't want to come back, but they do have a kicker on this roster. And if they had taken an undrafted guy and had him compete, then you would have at least had a competition and you take the best guy. Or there's still a guy like Mason Crosby out there who's a little bit younger than Robbie. He's kicked in really bad weather his whole career. He's still a damn good kicker himself. There were guys that you could for sure guarantee that no matter what, they were going to be good this year if you had plugged them into that spot. Now, Moody may be very good, but if he's average or a little bit worse than Robbie from an accuracy standpoint, it's an awful pick. And if he's a little bit above average, it's a decent pick, but really to justify it, in my opinion, he is going to have to be that 10-year kicker and probably a top 5 to 7 guy for that 10 years to even make it worth it. That's just my opinion on it.
Yeah. I mean, you better freaking hit. You took a kicker in the third round. That's fine. He better be freaking good.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, it's simple as that. John B says, breaking news. Flav has been traded to the Raiders fan base, and in exchange, the Niners will get a new boombox guy.
I don't know. The boombox guy is important.
There's a lot of Flav mentions in the chat today. I mean, seriously,
he's very anti Trey Lance.
Is he?
And yeah, big time.
Is Flav one of your guys, or is he one of my guys?
He's everybody. He's everywhere, and he's a super chat guy. I mean, he'll pay to talk
to
very
play.
Poorly
pay to
about
play.
Trey Lance. Yeah.
Carsard, would Flav be making the same Trey narrative if he has the run Brock did? Knees says last time John tweeted about a 49er quarterback, it was to leave them in Nashville. Oh, man.
He liked the tweet. Yeah.
Oh, man. Artur Gazarian, how about this shocking revelation? The quarterback situation with the Niners will develop organically, and the best player will go forward. Meritocracy.
Right.
In a lot of ways, I just want them to make the decision for themselves. Don't lean on your locker room to tell you who the guy is. You tell them who the guy is. That's the only thing. I know Shanahan's got this, committee of veterans, and it's good to talk to your veterans. It's good, but you're the boss. You make the decision. Don't let them make the decision. I feel like Steve Kerr allowed Draymond and Steph and Clay to make some decisions this year, and I think that's probably maybe regretful at this point. And you sometimes you listen to the players. Sometimes you just got to hear the players. There's a difference between listening to the players and hearing the players. The Warrior players wanted Avery Bradley. The Warrior management wanted GP2. Well, should they have listened to their players and gone with Avery Bradley, or should they hear their players and go with GP2?
Right.
So all I would say is always hear your players. And make them feel heard, but don't listen to them necessarily.
Also, right? if you need any more proof to know that players don't have biases or do have biases, rather, they have biases and they don't talent evaluate very well because that's not what they are paid to do. They are players. Then do yourself a favor, and when the leaks come out and pictures come out every once in a while of the top 10 on their 100 list of players in the NFL, just go ahead and peep that thing. And when you see weird things like, I don't know, Patrick Mahomes not in the top 5 or Joe Burrow's not as good as Kirk Cousins, remember those. And when you hear a player come out for the 49ers and really advocate for Jimmy Garoppolo or whoever, take it with a grain of salt and remember that these guys are not paid to do those things. They are paid to play football.
Yeah, or basketball, whatever sport it is.
Or whatever sport, yeah.
You think Rob Pelinka is a better GM? Look at the moves that Pelinka made. Look at the moves that LeBron made. LeBron wanted to trade everybody for Russell Westbrook, got them in cap hell. Pelinka made like 3 or 4 trades at the trade deadline, probably deserves executive of the year. Undoing all of the LeBron, hey, we got to have Westbrook. Really? Really? How about this? You're an awesome player. Let's leave it that way. Flav says, sorry, Larry, I told my fans to donate, but not to mention my name. Now Flav's got fans. Come on, guys. Respect Larry's show. You can fanboy over me later.
It's been a lot of back and forth to your benefit here, right here, with all these super chats. That's great.
That makes me laugh. Niner by nature, which it takes me back to my college days. I was a huge Naughty by Nature fan. He says Flav needs a timeout. Yeah, Joe E. Larry getting that money tonight. Before we go to the rest of these chats, give me your thoughts on the draft, Jesse. What'd you think? I mean, I trust your opinion. You got an opinion on a number of these guys. I mean, not everybody's. I'll say this. I understand. Not everybody's the draft geek like me, who just is like undrafted guy from East Carolina. I get it. Especially somebody like yourself. This is your second deal. You have a family. You have a job. You have a whole nother career. So, I understand that not everybody who does what we do does deep dives. Like Grant, not a deep dive guy on the draft. Neither's Vish. Most people aren't. I get it. It's labor intensive. If it's not your bag, it's not your bag. But I feel like you're kind of in between. Like Grant pays it very little mind. Vish wants to look at it maybe afterwards. I get the sense from talking to you leading into the draft that you're aware of it and following it, but not like deeply on like day 3 and undrafted guys. But what did you think overall? I mean, and did I correctly assess your draft level, or are you super into it and I misread you?
No, you definitely got me right this year for sure. Normally, if the 49ers have a first round pick, I usually geek out. I'll definitely do a lot of homework and watch film and do all of those things. I didn't do that very much this year. I definitely was familiar with all the names. I knew stats and had watched a couple guys, but I wasn't like gung ho on every player the way that I have been in the past. So I think you're right about that. I will say that there were some things that I definitely liked that they did. Listen, the 49ers always crush the end of the draft. That's number one.
And I wonder why. Grant thinks it's because Kyle picks early and the scouts pick late.
Maybe.
He's always banging on Kyle. But, I asked him about the other day. He's like, I think, maybe Kyle has a say or, early on, but the Niners have really good scouts that they lean on for day 3. And that, heck, that's not crazy. I mean, there are many head coaches and that have a big say on the first round pick and just a passing comment on the day 3 picks.
Yeah, definitely. And I don't know the reason for it, but one thing that we have to give credit to is that whoever are the scouts there, they're doing a fantastic job because they hit late. And also let's give credit to Kyle and these coaches for being great developers of the back end players. It's one thing to hit every once in a while on a back end player, but a lot of that comes down to the development and putting them in the right positions. And they've done a great job with all of these players at the late part of the draft. And I think that's allowed some of this success. But so that was number one. That stood out to me. First of all, loved Luter, loved Beal, loved Winners. I thought all 3 of those were home run picks. When they picked the second tight end in Willis, I thought to myself, maybe there's something to Willis that I didn't know. Maybe he could be the Juszczyk replacement. And then the more that I learned is He actually kind of could be that based off of what I know about him. So maybe that's the vision there. I'm not quite sure. But the one thing that I will say, and I think they knocked it out of the park with the very first pick, I had been saying going into this draft, the number one need, in my opinion, was actually a safety. And they moved up. I'm not saying that Jair Brown was the right safety. There were a few on the board. Maybe he is or maybe he isn't. But I like that they were aggressive, that they moved up, that they pinpointed a guy at a position of need and went out and made him their first pick in the draft. And so for that, I got to commend them. So I would say overall, there was some things that I really liked. There were some things that I scratched my head at. I ultimately did give them a C, but I think they made 3 or 4 A picks. Definitely.
Yeah. The Jair Brown pick I thought was a phenomenal pick, just from the
Mhm.
standpoint of they lost some alphas in that secondary. They lost
Yeah, they
Manuel
did.
Mosley. They lost Jimmy Ward. They didn't just need a replacement. They needed a leader. They needed a tone setter, a character guy, somebody who's going to come in and kind of set the tone and work incredibly hard. And, I just think that Jair Brown was a real home run pick. I'm not worried about the 4.65. To me, he plays much faster than that. And I saw that Rose Bowl. He totally dominated Utah in that Rose Bowl. He had 2 sacks. He had pick 6. He had like 8 or 9 tackles against the run. I mean, he showed he could play the deep middle. He showed he could play in the box. I like that one. The Moody pick we've already discussed. I didn't love the Latu pick or Latu. I love the Luter pick. I talked to him today. The thing that stood out about him is that what he did at South Alabama is exactly what the Niners do. And I think he's going to be, I would not be shocked if Luter beat out Lenore for the starting job opposite Charvarius. He's big. He's I asked him today, I go, what are you comfortable doing? Are you comfortable as a zone corner? I mean, every corner is a little different. Some guys are comfortable in zone. Some guys are comfortable in off coverage. Some guys are comfortable right up on the line of scrimmage and press man coverage. He said he was in press man coverage 95% of the time in college on the boundary receiver, usually the X. And he says the 49ers really have a similar scheme to what they used at South Alabama, and he thinks he's going to plug in and be able to play right away. I just see that the long arms and the toughness and the maturity of the kid and the confidence today. I think Luter might have been the best pick. The Beal pick is interesting because I think it's risk reward. I mean, it's a boom or bust kind of a pick. I mean, this guy barely played. He was a 5-star guy, didn't even play really for Georgia. But he does run 4.48, and he is 250 pounds. And the Niners don't ask their defensive ends to do much other than to get up the field. And so this guy should be able to come firing out of his stance and get up the field. So I we'll see. I love the traits, but I thought, man, I would have gone for 2 edge rushers. I definitely would have gone for an edge rusher in the last round too. And they didn't. So they put a lot on Beal's plate. D. Winters spoke today. I think D. Winters is tremendous.
Oh,
and it's funny.
Run, I think.
Lombardi asked him, he's like, they use you a lot as a blitzer. And he's like, no, I never blitzed. What you saw was just me shooting gaps, so that tells me, I mean, I loved that answer because it told me that it really looked like he was blitzing in the national semi when he won the defensive MVP against Michigan, but he wasn't. He was that's all film study and play recognition and shooting gaps and no hesitation and just going. And so that was really cool. Braden Willis, I think, is a super competitor. I mean, he's a tackle breaker. He's going to fight and claw for every yard. I think he's probably the guy that gets Dwelly off the roster. That would be my guess. The pick I didn't like was Ronnie Bell. We talked to him today. They should have gone defensive end. Dallas went Tyrus Wheat from Mississippi State after the draft, who had like one of the best 10-yard splits. He's a 6'3", 263-pound edge rusher who did it in the SEC against the best tackles. You could have had him there. Instead, you go Ronnie Bell. Ronnie Bell's not beating out your current receivers, so I didn't get that pick. I love the Jalen Graham pick because I watched a lot of Purdue football, and that guy's he's a really good linebacker. He flows. He's moving towards the ball. He's got great instincts. Love that pick. And then I loved a couple of the undrafted guys. I love Deshaun Jameson from Texas, who's a killer return guy, and a really tenacious corner who rallies up hard and tackles low. And I love Deshaun Jameson. Buddy of mine is a big Texas fan, and he's like, dude, Jameson's the real deal. And I'll tell you the guy that I'm really eager to talk to see this summer is the North Dakota State kid who's from South Dakota, Waggy. I did an interview with him last week from his farm in South Dakota. This guy Jesse's got a 164 split, 10-yard split. That was second among all defensive tackles to Krueger Jessie, who had a 16, or he had a 166, and Krueger Jessie had 164. But I mean, just to put it in perspective, Spencer Wagey at 300 pounds had the same 10-yard split that Alden Smith had coming out of Missouri. And I got to see it, man. I got to see that because this guy, I mean, when you're moving like that and you're 300 pounds and you've played defensive end, that's an incredible undrafted pick. So we'll see. Maybe he can play, maybe he can't. But when you see that kind of movement ability off the snap at 300 pounds, that guy that's an intriguing player. So those guys stand out. And then a couple of those running backs, Awatt from UTEP and Laburn from Marshall. The Niners have had such good success with the undrafted free agent running backs that I got to see what those guys look like too. I mean, I'm be looking at them tomorrow.
There was another, and his name is slipping me right now, but 6'3" receiver, had 1,000 yards receiving his senior year.
Isaiah Winstead.
There it is, Winstead. Yes,
East Carolina. Yeah, he caught 88 balls this year for almost 1,100 yards, 6 touchdowns. He ran in the 4.7s, but you saw that workout that he put on Twitter.
Yeah.
And the stop and start and the short area explosiveness is there. And then I would put a line through him and go, no, not a player. But then you look at that production, and East Carolina, that's not, some Division III nothing. I mean, East Carolina is a good program.
Yeah.
For him to catch 88 balls for 1,100 yards, that kid's got something. So I got to see it this summer. Maybe tomorrow.
And the way that I look at it is, and I've been saying this for a while, is I think this is Jennings' last year with the 49ers.
Yeah.
I think that they did it with Bourne. They're going to do it with Jennings, where they kind of just stream the third guy and they find the best guy and then let his contract play out, and then he's going to walk. And so they're going to be looking for wide receivers, whether it's Gray that was drafted last year, whether it's, the undrafted kid, whoever. They're going to try to play multiple people there, and they're going to try to figure it out. So, maybe he's the guy. He definitely is the same body type. And Jennings wasn't the fastest guy either, but he's third down in Juwan for a reason. Maybe this guy can fit that role eventually.
Couple last ones before we let you jet. There's an article out right now, NFL Analysis Network, written by Kenneth Tepe, who's a network analyst. He says the 49er Vikings trade proposal that would send Zadarius Smith to the Niners, and he's throwing out in this article that the 49ers could offer their 2024 4th-round draft choice to the Vikings for Zadarius Smith, the veteran pass rusher. The Vikings have been slashing salary all off season. They released Thielen. They're looking to trade Dalvin. If they could somehow move away from Zadarius, a trade would save them $12.1 million on the cap. They already have a terrible defense, so I don't know how this helps them getting rid of a veteran pass rusher. But to me, the one thing I'll say about this draft to wrap up the draft is I like the draft, but as I said, I thought they needed another edge rusher. I'm at a spot right now where I love this Niner roster, except for the lack of one big-time edge rusher. Like if you said to me, man, what do they need? They need Montez Sweat, or they need Zadarius Smith, or they need Leonard Floyd, or they need Frank Clark. I mean, they need Ngakwe. I mean, they need a big-time veteran. They lost Ebukam, Amenahue, and Jordan Willis, and replaced them with Cleveland Farrell and Austin Bryant and Robert Beal. I mean, that's not a fair trade. So it will look a lot better if you could add one more edge rusher who would be your number one edge rusher opposite Bosa. So, what do you think about Zadarius Smith? What do you think about, passing up the trade like that and going for, what about a Montez Sweat in a trade? What about a Chase Young in a trade? He's got a big tag, I think 17 million. What do you think about going out in the free agent market? To me, right now, it's Chiefs, Eagles, Niners. And do the Niners have a shot? Yeah. But if they get this edge rusher and it's a good one and he really, comes in and makes an impact, I think the Niners are on equal footing with Chiefs and Eagles. But without that piece, I don't think they are.
Yeah, I think, actually, I had tweeted out right after or right before they had made their first pick in the draft. I said, hey, I could see the 49ers, or it would be nice if the 49ers maybe don't go edge and make up with that by signing somebody like Yannick because they have the money for it. But the more that I think about it, the 49ers have really kind of put together this formula, Larry, where they wait and see a little bit. And you talk about Zadarius Smith. Yes, absolutely. I'm definitely down with that trade. But I feel like that trade or a trade similar, maybe Chase Young or whoever, those trades are going to be available before the trade deadline. And the 49ers have cap room right now, and they're going to create potentially more space when they extend Bosa. And so they got a couple options here. They can go into camp, figure out if Drake Jackson's a guy or maybe Beal's a guy or whatever. And if they're just completely uncomfortable, then they can go sign one of these guys that are available or make a small trade now. Or they can give these guys time to grow. They can get up to the trade deadline, assess where they're at, feel it out. Are we real competitors? Are we not? Is this at this point in the season, we're 6 games in. Is this still the biggest position in need, or did we have injuries somewhere else and we got to go make a trade? And now we can take on some extra money and give a late round draft pick to assess that or bring that in and make sure we're good. I kind of like that idea because you never know where you're going to be at 6 weeks into the season. And if you do feel like you're fine and you don't need anything, I don't mind rolling over money for the first time in who knows how long, because next year, these contracts are going to skyrocket. They've kicked the can down the road on a few of these contracts by reworking them the last couple of years. And a lot of money is going to be coming off the books next year. If they can stay under the cap by 10, $20 million somehow, still be just as competitive as ever, and have that extra free money that you can go over the cap next year, that also might be beneficial. So I kind of like, at least for now, just leaving your options open and then playing it and striking whenever you see fit, whether that's right before the season starts, whether that's 6 weeks into the season, or just rolling that money over and just keeping your options open versus, hey, we got to go get Yannick right now, or we got to go get Frank Clark right now. Keep your options open and see how this thing plays out a little bit.
Yeah, I agree. Do you agree that defensive end is the spot? Because there was another, I think Pro Football Focus had a rumor saying that maybe the Niners would show some interest in a trade for Isaiah Wynn, the New England right tackle.
That was last year too. They talked about that. I don't know if that's necessarily an upgrade. He's a talented player, but he's had some ups and downs. I don't know if he's not a system fit over there, but could be over here. But I mean, on the surface, it certainly does seem like edge rusher is the most glaring need for sure.
Yeah, I think it is. I think it absolutely is. Flav says if Moody is better than Gold this year, it was a good pick. Save $5 million, only cost a comp pick. If there was someone that could have started for the 49ers available, they weren't picking him anyways. All right. Well, we've had.
I mean,
and by the way, go ahead.
I don't think that that's the only thing that we can go off of and say, hey, it's a good pick. If he's not the best kicker that came out of this draft or undrafted free agents, then even if he's better than Gold, it's not a good pick. So yeah. I don't think that's true at all. If Dawan Jones, who's a tackle, or Freeland or whoever turns out to be a guy, or Keely Ringo turns out to be a guy, then no, it wasn't a good pick. So he's going to be compared to a lot of guys that were there. Not only kickers, not only every other kicker in the draft, but every other kicker in the NFL and players at other positions that are inevitably going to be very, very talented as well. So we'll see.
He better be a damn good kicker or there's going to be hell to pay. Let's be honest. Gammon says, guess which team the Steelers beat the Steelers week 1? 49ers. There we go.
I love
There we
it.
go. There we go, Gammon. People are like weighing in here. And have I read this one yet? Did I say that? Did we read this one? If not, Flav says if Trey somehow manages to start, we're going 1-2 in the first 3 games and will cost us home field for the second straight year. I hope 49ers aren't dumb enough to do that again. Flav, I think you got to be a little bit more open-minded when it comes to Trey Lance
It's
because
not.
you're talking about such a young player that I don't really feel like we know what I scouted. I feel like I got a pretty good handle on players. I don't feel like I know what Trey Lance can be. I intentionally did not just say, you know what, Trey's this, Trey's that, Trey stinks, because I really believe he's going to get there. I just don't know if it's going to be on the Niner timeline. I don't know if they can get it, if he can get there this year, but I think he definitely can get there. Because why? Because when you have this and this, you've got the brains, you've got the athleticism, you've got the arm strength, you check all the boxes. Football is important to you. See, what happens is you meet adversity, and then it's like life. What happens to you when that adversity comes? Some guys tuck tail and run for the hills. Other guys dig deeper and fight it out. You got to know what kind of person Trey Lance is. Trey Lance is the kind of person that's all in on football. Why? Because dad played football. Football is the family business. His brother plays football. He's not like, hey, I want to play football so I can make money so I can buy this. He wants to play football. So, yeah, he's had an odd development curve and development path and hasn't played in the pandemic and the 1-game season and all these weird things, the injury, the way they utilized him, Jimmy, so on and so forth, all these different things. But it's not over. All right. The game ain't over. And I know we want to make quick snap judgments. And the reality is sometimes these things do take time and it takes patience. My only question is it going to happen here? I really believe it's going to happen. That's why this idea of like, well, get a 4th-round pick. I don't want a 4th-round pick.
Right.
Because this guy could show up in Minnesota and wind up being Brett Favre, part 2. And, it could be John Lynch could never say another word again without people saying you're the guy who passed on Mahomes and traded away the great Trey Lance. People see things as they are and not as they potentially can be. These scouts, you have to look at potentially what can be. And I think there's a lot of potential with Trey Lance. So only reason I was considering making the move is because I thought I was just reading what they were going to do. But even so, I wanted something good. I wanted like a late 1st-round pick or an early 2nd-round pick. I wanted to be able to turn him into Michael Mayer or some impact draft choice, not just get rid of him because you're clearing the decks. Get rid of him because it'll make everybody feel more comfortable saying, Brock's our guy. It's not about comfort. It's about production.
I also find it interesting that, Flav was a big Jimmy guy. And I find it interesting that Flav puts them not getting the number 1 seed on week 1 versus the Bears and completely glosses over the safety, touchdown, interception, whatever, the 8-point safety essentially that Jimmy Garoppolo laid in Denver when they couldn't score it all in good weather. So, it's all about eye of the beholder, but you're willing to put 0 of that on Jimmy and all of it on Trey Lance in a monsoon. I just find that right there, that shows your bias big time.
Just give it time. Give it time, because I think you're going to see we're going to find out one way or another, but I almost would guarantee you that you're going to see a dramatically improved version of Trey Lance. Is it going to be good enough to start? I don't know, but I'll say this. I think the Niners coming out of the preseason are going to be in a far better position. I'll make this prediction right now. And as you know, not all my predictions are right, but I'll say this. I really believe this. The Niners will be in a much more advantageous position to move Trey if they want to, or just advantageous position, period, if they want to keep all their quarterbacks after camp, after the preseason. Wait until this kid plays this summer, and then let's take a look. Because I think at that point, if you want to move him, I think the offers are going to be there, because I think he's going to flash. It's like nobody wanted Jordan Love either until he played that one game this last year. And then suddenly it's like, hey, Jordan Love, Jordan Love. So it's like, you know what? You can't do it till you can. Nobody knows for sure. And these quarterbacks are very difficult to project. Colby says,
we've seen a lot of players throughout history. I mean, just go track every quarterback that's ever been drafted and played. It's all over the place. You have guys that start their career hot and fizzle out. You have guys that start their career cold and turn into something. Sometimes you get really lucky and you get the Justin Herberts and the Patrick Mahomes, but those are actually not the rule. Those are the exception. You get more guys that start out hot and go cold, or start out cold and go hot, a lot more than you get the guy that's just from start to finish is really, really good. That's just, it's rare. It's very rare that happens. It doesn't happen very often. So chances are that, Brock Purdy might go cold or Trey Lance might go hot. You have no idea at this point.
Yeah. I mean, I would say more than anything with Trey is just that, Brett Favre, played with the Falcons. If you don't, if you're one of these youngsters who only is watching the NFL recently, yeah, Brett Favre played with the Falcons. Steve Young was a bust until he wasn't. Vinny Testaverde was a Tampa Bay bust until he wasn't, until he found himself later in his career. So just things sometimes are what they seem, but sometimes things evolve. Colby says Casey Schmidt is the truth. 4 for 4 and a 450-foot shot. Are you familiar with Casey Schmidt?
No.
Jesse. Giants third baseman, shortstop. Flav says, I fully acknowledge 8 years from now, we don't know, but I don't think he's anywhere close right now. I think 49ers actions completely back that up too, but I hear you. Just give it time. We
don't know. Yeah, it sounds like they're impressed with what they've seen. It sounds like maybe they thought that too, and now they're like, oh shoot, we didn't expect this guy to show up at camp. Things might be a little bit different than even what they expected, Flav.
Exactly. I think, I think that's probably the most salient point we've made yet. Ecuvista says, LK, what do you like to get from sauced barbecue? Sauced? What are you sauced? Pig in a pickle. There will be no sauced. I don't buy anything from sauced. Pig in a pickle? Oh, I'm all over it. Are you kidding me? I love pig in a pickle. Get the brisket chili at Pig in a Pickle. Mark says, how great would it be if the Niners got all three of these quarterbacks to become great starters?
For sure.
Seriously, trade a couple, keep one, trade two, or keep two, trade one. Flav, I've give Jimmy a break for Denver game after not having a playbook while they wasted all the first team reps on Trey. I'd be shocked if the Niners didn't learn from that with Sam. Get him some reps, please, God. All right.
Sure, man. Sure.
Everybody's got a story. Everybody's got a theme. All right, man, you got a final thought? Appreciate you going. Seriously, I said we were going to go 50 minutes. It's an hour and 42.
I knew it. Larry, come on. You knew and I knew we weren't going 50 minutes with a schedule release. It was not possible. Seriously.
And you got great takes, and I think I've got a few, and you and me sit down together, and seriously, we're having more than one meal at Pig in a Pickle. We're gonna have they're gonna be bringing us a second sandwich at Pig in a Pickle.
I love it.
But give me your final Niner thought. I mean, we've talked a lot about the draft. Obviously, the rookie mini camp's coming up. The roster's pretty much set. I guess I'll throw it to you this way: what do you feel as we sit here on May the 11th? What's your biggest concern? Is it Colton McKivitz? Is it the fact that they don't have enough defensive ends opposite Bosa? Is it the secondary? Is it really they're deep in a lot of spots now, but I mean, would you say offensive line, secondary, defensive end? What's your biggest concern on the 11th of May? Niner-wise.
Well, I'm in the future. It's the 12th over here, just so you know.
That's right.
We're past midnight. For me, my biggest concern, Larry, and as much as we've talked about the position, it's the quarterback position still. There are three guys that could be really good, but there are three guys that all might be nothing. And if that is at all possible, man, at the most important position in football, there's just no certainty here right now. There is no certainty. Brock coming off injury, Trey coming off of injury and not having a lot of games played. Sure, Sam could be better here, but also he's been very turnover prone in his career through college and through the pros. There is nothing certain about the most important position in football. And if you don't find certainty this year and you have to go against some of the best players in the league and a Patrick Mahomes or a Hurts or Burrow or whoever, when playoff time comes and you're outgunned week in and week out at that position, the most important position in football, a really talented roster that has to do a lot of travel might not be able to hold up. That would be my biggest concern. We got to have one of these guys. I don't care who it is, but one of these guys has to show out and be a guy, be at least a top 15 guy throughout the season. And if they can have that, they'll be fine. But if all of them are somehow flops and screw ups, man, they're in real trouble.
I'll say this. I think the Niners have a good secondary, but it's young now, right? Because you've added Jair Brown and Luter, and I think Jameson's going to make the team. They got some young players there for sure. Hafanga's still very young. Lenore, obviously Ambry Thomas. There's a lot of youth. Sammy Womack. But I feel good about them if they can put a big rush up front. But I'm worried about they don't get an edge rusher. They try to go with what they have. And Nick Bosa pulls a hamstring, and because he's got these monster legs, is out for 5 weeks. And you take Bosa off the field for 5 weeks, and now you have Drake Jackson, who I like, but Cleveland Farrell, Kerry Hyder, Austin Bryant, Robert Beal, Alex Barrett. I mean, you got a lot of question marks there. And so you need Bosa to not just play, you need him to play huge. So I would say I'm concerned about defensive end behind Bosa. And will they not get their value out of Bosa if they don't add another piece opposite him? Will he just get chipped and they'll slide the line towards him and he'll be facing double teams and maybe getting hurt because he's facing double teams? And so that's I'm not as concerned about Colton, not as concerned about the quarterbacks. I'm not sure which quarterback is going to be the guy, but
Right.
I'm not as concerned. I feel like they're covered because I like the guys they have. But like, I really loved Ebukam, and I thought Menahue was really good, and Jordan Willis very underrated. And to replace them with Cleveland Farrell, who's got 10 sacks in 4 seasons, Austin Bryant, who's just kind of a guy. I like Drake, but I mean, it's a projection. I don't know. I mean, to me, that is what worries me. If they had one more impact defensive end, I'd feel so much better than I do right now. So that's where I'm at.
So if they go out and sign Yannick tomorrow, I want to hold you to this. They go out and sign Yannick or somebody similar as far as that caliber player. Are you picking the 49ers to win the Super Bowl tomorrow?
I'm picking them to go to the Super Bowl.
Okay.
I'm definitely picking them to beat. I think they're going to go to. I mean, right now, Kansas City between Reed and Mahomes and the Veach and finding guys like Isaiah Pacheco. If Kansas City, you get into the winner's circle and Kansas City's healthy and Reed, and I mean, I just don't. I don't know how you beat them. I just think they're on such a different level. But if they're not healthy, or if they don't get there, or there's a lot that can happen between now and next January. I definitely like the nine. I think right now the pecking order is Chiefs are the best team in the AFC by a wide margin. Niners and Eagles are once again the 2 best teams in the NFC. And I think they're very, very comparable. And if the Niners don't get a defensive end, I like the Eagles. And if the Niners do get a defensive end, I like the Niners. But I think there's a big drop off between Kansas City and Buffalo and Cincinnati. And in the NFC, I think there's a huge drop off between the Niners and Eagles, and then Detroit or whatever team you want to throw in there.
Seattle
really.
Or whoever.
Seattle, whatever. I mean, Dallas. Some people throw Dallas in there. I think it's probably Detroit, but I think it's Niners, Eagles, clear cut, the 2 best teams in the conference. So, and by the way, the Eagles had an awesome draft. I mean, it just made me sick made me absolutely sick that they had that good of a draft.
From the first to the last pick, man, even their last pick, I was like, are you kidding me? They went and got this Texas defensive tackle, Jomo or whatever his name is, or Mojo.
A Jomo, yeah.
Bro, come on. This guy was a player too. I'm like, it's enough already. Enough. Keely Ringo, like, just stop. Oh, and then they went and got my favorite safety in the draft too. The guy that I was hoping
Sidney Brown.
Yeah, Sidney Brown was my guy.
Yeah, he might be better than the guy he replaced. It's ridiculous. And 2 last super chats. People are just raining cash on me tonight. New York Niners 718.
Yeah,
we'll give them that. Not going anywhere named Pig in a Pickle. Sounds fruity. And Mr. Bell, I think you guys need to take a deeper look at Jair Brown. His tape does not look good, in my opinion. Misses way too many tackles. Hey, let me just say this. 16 turnovers. That's what the guy produced. That's a lot of turnovers. I like Jair Brown. I hear what you're saying. He's not a perfect player, but
no.
I think he's going to beat out Gibson. I really do. I'd be shocked if Gibson holds him off. Jesse, tell people
he wasn't my favorite safety in the draft either. I mean, I just told you who mine was, but
yeah, because Sidney Brown's a great cover guy.
He's a ball hawk. He's much like Hufanga, and maybe they kind of double up there on similar players. But whenever you're an instinctual player, especially if you're an instinctual player that doesn't have top end speed, chances are there's going to be something that's not perfect in your game, and maybe it's missed tackles. Maybe it's you give up a big play here or there, but you're going to make it up on the back end with getting a lot of turnovers as well and just being a ball hawk. So we'll see. We'll see how it plays out. I think it was a fine pick.
Polyester. I love that name. Larry, you can upgrade a studio with all these super chats. Upgrade the studio. Look at all my flags going there. I've upgraded. Polyester. This Digital Drew says, "Hey, Larry. So not lazy. Lazy. Sup, Jesse? Digital Drew. Digital Drew's a cool guy. Jesse, tell people. I
don't think I've seen Digital Drew.
He lives in Chicago. He is one of the creators and developers and founders of Mortal Kombat.
Really?
He works on Mortal Kombat. And if you ever see me when I have him do video calls, he's got the Mortal Kombat like stand-up arcade game like right behind his head there. So yeah,
that's awesome. That's cool. All right, Digital Drew. I need to see you in my chats now.
Seriously, go check out Jesse's chats. And by the way, thank you for those codes, Digital Drew. He gave my son some codes so he could get in on the Mortal Kombat. So my son, I told him, I said, "You're a Mortal Kombat made man. Do you know what that is?" So we joked about it. He's like, "Dad, what does that mean?" All right, bro. Cool. Hey, what do you got cooking on the Jessie channel the rest of the week? Tease whatever you got coming up that you want people to tune in for.
Yeah, man. I think there will probably be a couple videos that I come out with this weekend, some shorter form content. I don't have any live content for the rest of the week, but for sure during the off season, every Tuesday and every Thursday, you can catch me. Thursday, I always give the channel back to y'all. I open it up. It's all open mic. You guys call in and give your takes and just kind of give the platform back. So that's what I was doing right before this show. The very least, if you want to get your takes off, you want kind of the old school radio style call in, that's the way to go. Show up on Thursday, open mics. Check me out over at Last Second Sports. I appreciate it.
What time on Thursdays?
Thursdays, it's usually either going to be 9 or 10 p.m. Eastern.
10 p.m. Eastern. Okay, that's 7 Pacific. All right, Jesse, good stuff, man. Always great to rap with you. Maybe we'll do it in a week, and I'll be reporting back from minicamp tomorrow. Hopefully, they'll look incredible. But good talking to you, man. Always great to rap with you. The audience loves you, and you do a phenomenal job with your channel, man. So keep it rolling.
Thank you, Larry. I appreciate it.
Have a good night. There you go, Jesse. Fantastic. And we took Jesse way too long. I mean, seriously, Jesse's sitting there going, it's freaking 1 o'clock in the morning, Krug. It's 1 o'clock in the morning Eastern. Let me get the hell out of here. And I said to Jesse, hey, we're going to go 50 minutes. We went an hour and 53. Ugh. Jesse, I'm sorry. I'm going to have to text him afterwards and be like, bro, sorry. All right, good stuff. Thanks to everybody. Check out Pig in a Pickle, title sponsor of the Krug Show. Pig in a Pickle, best barbecue in Northern California. It looks a little bit like this.
up with a Sunday dinner. That means no matter how busy you were, no matter where the hell you were, you came to dinner on a Sunday night. Yeah, Sunday dinner without sausage, it's like a church without God. You know, how can you go to church if you don't believe in God? You know, and along with the sausage also became the discussions. That was discussion night. You know, it wasn't a typical family that you sit there and you're quiet, you know, and you don't talk with a mouthful. Oh no, man. Italians talk when they're eating. Italians even talk when they're sleeping. And definitely we talk with our hands. So if we can't express it through our mouth, through our lips, we express it with our hands. So, and that's what sausage is, really. It's an expression, you know, that life is good.
All right, coming down the home stretch on the Krug Show. Yes, sir, says Larry. Are you aware Wiggins might be out? I did see that. Warriors need a win in LA to keep that series alive. We'll be on tomorrow night after Warriors-Lakers Game 6. Either we're going to have one more game after Game 6, or it's on to the offseason and maybe the end of the dynasty for the Golden State Warriors. So that coming up tomorrow. Busy day tomorrow. I'm going to be in Santa Clara for rookie minicamp. Can't wait to see the guys out on the field. No pads or anything like that, but we'll tell you what they look like nonetheless. Looking forward to that tomorrow, putting my eyes on it and letting you guys know what I thought of it tomorrow night at some point, either in a video on the channel or via a live stream. But then we're going to be on tomorrow night after Warriors-Lakers. So check us out tomorrow night. We'll have the whole crew in effect and everybody will be doing their thing. So look forward to that tomorrow night. If you go to the Krug Show on YouTube, hit like and subscribe. If you hit like, that just helps the algorithm. More people find us, helps more people find our shows. If you hit subscribe, you'll be added to our list of 17,689 subs. 17,689. So we're trying to get to 20,000 before training camp. If you have yet to sub, if you're one of the 312 people still hanging in the room and you've yet to sub, please do. Please do. You know, we're do a lot of Niners, a lot of football, a lot of Bay Area sports, some Giants baseball, but not a ton. Definitely some Warrior basketball post game, but mostly Niners, as you can tell, as my backdrop has almost all Niners going. So yeah, please hit like and subscribe. Also, we have you can be a channel member for $4.99 a month. If you'd like to order a Krug Show t-shirt, as my 13-year-old would say, Dad, we got merch. So yes, we do. We've got some merch. They're $25 a shirt. Just DM me. Tell me how many you want, what size, and we'll work it out. I just have people Venmoing me the money. But I appreciate every single one of you guys. Having a lot of fun doing the channel. As I said, we're at 17,689 subs to the second and having a ton of fun doing this. So I hope you guys are enjoying the content. Shout out to my son, Kevin, who puts together a lot of our videos. Really put out some really cool IG videos today. So check me out on Instagram as well. And you can see some of the IG reels that he's put together. Love that kid. He's doing some incredible stuff and he's growing the channel to, you know, an incredible level. I mean, we've had 715,000 views of our videos and live streams in the last 4 weeks alone. We've had almost 130,000 watch hours in the last 4 weeks alone. So the channel is exploding. We just got to 17,000 subs, Friday, and we're at almost 17,700 today. So we're picking up, 100 subs a day or more. Anyway, just really loving the YouTube experience. One of the things I love the most about it are guys like Jessie. I didn't know Jessie when I was doing radio, and Vish and, several. I mean, I knew Grant, I knew Lombardi, I knew some of those guys, but I didn't know a lot of the content creators that I know now. And some of my favorite people to talk Niners with right now are guys who are content creators who I met through YouTube. And I just love it. I mean, it's absolutely incredible. And these guys know as much as anybody. They're on it as much as anybody. I mean, I have great admiration for guys like Matt Barrows and Matt Mayoko, but not any more admiration than I have for guys like Jesse and guys like Vish, who are just outstanding at what they do. So, anyway, I just wanted to say shout out to those guys. Don't just hit like and subscribe on this channel. You see the guys that I have on this channel. If I have them on this channel, that means I believe in them. If I believe in them, that means I'm following them. If I'm following them for good Niner content, you should be following them for good Niner content. So every guy that we have on this show, without me saying it, I love it. Every single one of you, every time we have Vish on, you say, you know what? Am I subscribed to Vish's channel? Not yet. Let's go to Vish's channel, click it, and subscribe. If I subscribe to Jesse's channel yet, nope. Click it, go over there and subscribe. I'm all about helping others. Why? Because Grant Cohn helped me. When I was out of radio and sitting there going, what do I want to do? Do I want to keep being on the radio? Do I want to go keep being try to pursue TV or some kind of other markets or whatever? I sat down with Grant and he's like, hey, look, man, I'm blowing up in this thing and you could blow up in this thing too. You've got good content, put it out there and I'm going to show you how, and you do what I do and everything's going to be good. And that's helped me immeasurably. It's been an incredible, roughly year and a half. I got nothing but respect for Grant, nothing but respect for many of these content creators who hustle and put out a lot of really, really good content. So anyway, that's my soapbox. Digital Drew. Larry, how about the Krug Show koozie? Those would be awesome. Okay, we can work that out. We can work out a koozie for your beer. Nick J says 20,000 subs on the horizon. That's the game plan. We're trying to get to 20,000 by camp. I think it's possible. The way we're growing right now, I think we can get to 20,000 by camp. Trock says, Larry, you will get to 25,000 by June. All right. If you say so. I try to keep my head down and just keep producing content and keep having fun and let the chips fall where they may. L Ames says $20 per great cigars. Where at? I missed something here. Wait, I gotta go back to him. He says a cigar with tequila or whiskey is amazing, but too expensive. I like a good cigar. I mean, I'll definitely smoke a good cigar. I'll say this: one of my favorite cigar bars of all time is the Point Hilton Resort in Phoenix at the Point Hilton Resort in the Tipatillo Cliffs there. Ride 7th Street out. You're sitting there looking out over the entire desert, and they got this restaurant up there called the Different Point of View, and it's got glass windows, and it's like the entire wall of glass, and you're looking out over the desert, and you're sitting out there on the patio, and they got the cigar bar, and you're looking out over the entire desert and the lights at night. It's spectacular. Go check it out. Trox says, Larry, you inspired me. I'm starting a channel. Do it. Absolutely do it. You know what? The one thing about it, it's like a savings account. Whether it builds fast or builds slow, it doesn't matter. Just keep building it. And if you do it like Jesse does it for fun, it's like a double win. If it ever really starts to really click and make you money, how many people get to make money off their hobby? Not too many. MF says Krug Show lanyard. Those things that we put our credentials around. I think I've got a lanyard sitting here somewhere. There we go. The Krug Show lanyard. Got my Giants press credential with a picture from like 12 years ago. My wife looked at one of my credentials the other day. She's like, what year was this from? I'm like, it's like 3 years ago. I just kept using an old picture. She's like, wow. Ryan Hensley's in the chat. Great job, Larry. Ryan, we got to get you back on, buddy. I'll say this. Ryan always says, he tries to make the star of his channel the guests. Let's be honest. Ryan's the star. Ryan is the star of his channel. But he does have some killer guests. And he does some great stuff. And, I've had people come at me and be like, you probably hate Ryan and you totally disagree. I'm like, bro, you've totally misread me. And you've misread Ryan. We're both grounded individuals. Grounded. What that means is our feet are the same place at all times. He gets me, I get him. We didn't agree on whether or not Trey Lance was going to be traded or not. I thought he would. He didn't think he would be. To this point, he's been right, and he won the bet. So hey, the one thing about me, I may have a big mouth and run it, but I pay off my bets and I admit when I'm wrong. It's how I've been married for 20 plus years. If you're going to be married for 20 plus years, you got to admit when you're wrong. Sometimes the best thing you could ever say is, I'm sorry. I'm sorry. By the way, congrats to Dave Lombardi, who I saw today in Santa Clara. Dave is a newlywed. That's right. Dave just tied the knot, and good for him. Happy for him. He's 33 years old, he told me. He said he wants to start a family. Good for him, man. Good for him. The one thing that Ryan and I can tell you without a doubt is there's nothing better than watching your kids play sports. It was NFL draft day. There was tons of shit going on. The Warriors were playing that day. And where was Rye? Rye was watching his kid at a track meet because that's what he's about. Nothing but respect. That's who I am. You ask my kids, I don't care if it's the World Series. I don't care if it's the NBA Finals. If my kid's playing, I'm there, man. I'm there. And I'll tape it. My wife always laughs at me. She's like, well, your life is sports and, your career and the whole thing. But if the kids have a big game and you got a, competing game, you always DVR it. I'm like, yeah, because I'm not an idiot. I know I love my kids. I like Nick Bosa. There's a difference. I love my three sons and my daughter. I like Fred Warner. I love my children. I like Kyle Shanahan. Do you see? You see the difference? Batman says, Larry, you should have a subscriber meetup. Maybe watch a Niners game. How awesome would that be? Yeah, we got to do that. The meetup would be so cool too, because it's like, there's so many people that are like, dude, I feel like I know you. And I was in a parking lot the other day at Safeway and a couple guys came up to me and like, dude, Grant Cohn. I'm like, no, dude, I'm not Grant Cohn. I'm Larry Krueger. Not Grant Cohn, Larry Krueger. Like, oh yeah, but you're on with Grant Cohn, bro. I'm like, yeah. My kid was laughing. He's like, Dad, that's crazy. They're recognizing you from YouTube. I'm like, yeah, this is the way it is. It's the way it is. Nick J says, is Rye going to be with you for SF Niners locker room hits this season? I don't think so, but I don't know. Not really sure. It's still kind of TBD at this point. I love Rye, and hopefully he will be because he did an incredible job last year. That's for sure. Waveware says, that's a great hotel in Phoenix, Lair. Yeah. Oh, yeah. The Point Hilton Resort, Tipatillo Cliffs. Phenomenal. What else? Let's see. We got this one from Carsard. Wow, Larry, I thought that was a wall. I thought that wall was like 6-7 feet away from you. It's literally right behind you. No, it's like, there's my hand. It's about 3.5 feet away from my hand. My entire studio is like 10 by 12. And by the way, up here, right there, Breezy, that's Breezy's flag. It says Nitty Gritty Niners. Lee Gowland gave me the UK flag. Somebody else from the Niner UK Empire gave me the one on the door. So I've been putting up the flags. I kind of like the way the Niner flags have been looking. Really enjoying it. We got this one, Mr. Hankey. Larry, any San Francisco Giants thoughts? Well, I'm glad they recalled Casey Schmidt. I'm really happy about that. I wanted to see him come north out of spring training. As far as the Giants' thoughts, the Giants, they got to get it going. I mean, they just got to get it going. They won today 6-2 over Arizona. I think the Giants are, they're 17-20. They're 3 under 500. They're 500 at home, 3 under on the road. I think that's pretty much what they are. I think what the Giants are right now is kind of what they are. They're going to play 500 at home. They're going to play under 500 on the road. They're going to be under 500 for the year. Some days they hit, some days they don't. Casey Schmidt today was 4 for 4. My God. See, I mean, I didn't understand. And I go watch my video that I did in March about Casey Schmidt. I'm like, Casey Schmidt needs to make the final roster. And I had like 12 reasons why. He was the best player on the Giants in spring training. He might be their best defensive player. They're not good against left-handed pitching. He's a right-handed bat. He's good enough to play shortstop. 4 for 4. Double, his second home run, 2-run shot in the second. Damn. I got to go watch that on the replay. I DVR'd it. I have yet to watch it. Yeah, good. See, the Giants are so much more fun to watch when they have Casey Schmidt. So much more fun to watch. MF says, watch Tolbert dissect the Niners schedule on the KMBR live stream. Oh, how's the KMBR live stream doing? Good to see they have a live stream. Only took them 2 years. Digital Drew, often wrong, seldom in doubt. That was my sign off. Nick J says, Larry, who wins game 6, Dubs or Lakers? Warriors. Warriors win game 6. Warriors win game 7. Warriors move on to take on Denver. Warriors lose to Denver. I hate to say it. I think Warriors are going to lose to Denver. Ryan says 100. Yeah, Rye's a good man. Rye's about his kids and his family first. Anybody who puts their kids and family first, come on, man. That's what it's all about. And that's what Ryan and I get along, because I understand him. He understands me. And all this stuff that we're going back and forth on Trey Lance, it's just sports, man. It's just sports. I don't get too bent on sports. I really don't. Now, did I believe what I didn't just say it for clicks? That part pisses me off. People are like, you just said it for clicks. No, I didn't. No, I absolutely did not. I really thought the 49ers were going to trade Trey Lance and that they would trade him by draft day. But there's a difference between saying that you predicting it and wanting it. That's where people come at me and they're super angry. They're like, you hated him. Dude, you have no idea. You have absolutely no idea. Digital Drew says, I should field report for the Krueger show when the Giants come to Chicago. LOL. Already have tickets. Call in from the bleachers. Let's do it. Digital, let's do that. I'm all about that. That would be awesome, man. That would be awesome. Digital Drew from the bleachers. Clarsard says, Krug show event at a game. Larry, I would travel for that. Clarsard, where are you coming from? You're not in the Bay? Tell me where you're at. But that would be cool. That would be cool. Ryan says, any hope for the Giants, Larry? Yeah, there's hope. There's hope. I mean, you just got to have lower standards. I mean, the Giants are in the middle of a rebuild, but they're not even at the point yet where they've rebuilt. They're still taking a sledgehammer to the Formica. You know what I mean? They're still hammering out the dilapidated cabinets. They don't have the new stuff yet to be put in. And in a lot of ways, Casey Schmidt's the beginning of it. So I heard Larry Baer do an interview today with Copeland and Tolbert, where Larry Baer was like, I've never heard Larry Baer so knowledgeable about Giants prospects. I mean, this guy's talking about guys in A-ball. And I mean, they are dialed in on the future because they understand that's where they need to be dialed in on. But yeah, he was talking up some guy and never heard of an A-ball who's got 1,000 OPS. And I mean, it's amazing. MF says, Ned was right about Sean Mania. Lots of hard contact. We got this one from Nick. He says, Ratty coming on anytime soon? I don't know. I'm not really sure about Ratty, if he can come on or not. But I got to call him. I got to call him and invite him at least. Mr. Hankey says, Larry, are you still doing San Francisco Giants post games? I am. I haven't done it because I'm waiting. I've been doing so many Warriors post games and so much Niners stuff. I'll just be totally honest with you guys. The traction on the channel, the growth of the channel it's all tied to 49ers. I mean, the 49ers, it's like if they were in the rankings, the Niners are like 1, 2, 3, and 4. The Warriors would be like 5, and the Giants would be like 6, 7, 8. So will I do Giants post games? Absolutely. As soon as the Warriors check out of the playoffs, which could be as soon as tomorrow or in a week, we will go back to doing Giants post games. But until then, we're going to do Warriors post games, and I'm doing a lot of Niners stuff leading into the draft. And now, I'm doing a lot of Niners videos and that kind of thing for the channel. And it's just growing the channel so much faster. But absolutely, when the Warriors are done, we will go back to doing Giants post games. And hopefully you'll all join us there because we'd love to see you there. Okay. Nick J says David VR is going to be the odd man out. Nick J says Cobb was impressive. It's a lot of Giants. It might be too much Giants for the general audience. Dusty Gold says, got back from the A's game against the Rangers tonight, Larry. Coliseum sure was empty. Oh, man, that's sad. That's sad. Nick J says, Krug, do some tour stops a la Jim Rome. There we go. Like Rome used to roll into Sacramento. MF, most hits by a giant in his first 3 games. Willie McCovey, 8. Casey Schmidt, 8. Isn't that so interesting that the great ones have memorable debuts often? Will Clark, dead center, off Nolan Ryan. Willie McCovey, whatever was he, 4 for 5 off Robin Roberts. There's a lot of guys who go on to have memorable careers, have memorable debuts. It's really amazing when you think about it. Carsard says, Washington, Larry. I'm in Seattle, in Seahawks country. Nice. Washington State's beautiful. Nick J, if Radnich comes on, it'll break YouTube. 1,000 in the room for sure. Yeah, if Raddy's going to come on, I'm going to have to promote it. I'll have to, we always promote it via Twitter, but we may have to promote it via everything. MF says, love the Krug show. Appreciate you, brother. MF is the man. Another MF. Always remember Radnich saying Niners are the hot topic in the Bay Area. Oh yeah. I mean, it's not even close. It's not even close. Mr. Hanky says, I'm obsessed with the Giants. Giants. I love you, Giants. Wow. Carlo P. Love when YouTube takes me straight to Larry's stream when Dan finishes his. We're trying to get Danny's channel up and rolling. So, Danny just started it. It's called NorCal Sports Network. Every one of you guys should go check that out. Danny's a good man, does great stuff, loves baseball. You can, of course, catch Danny on our Warrior post games. And when basketball season ends for the Warriors, Danny and I will be doing a lot of Giants. You can bank on that. Equivista, have you ever had a Lockerford sausage? No, never. And I don't plan on trying anytime soon. As Monte Ellis said, I'm a Warriors and I'm always going to be a Warriors. I'm a New York style sausage man and I'm always going to be a New York style sausage man. Al Felipe, what kind of car are you driving? Classic Ratty. Ratty. Some of my most favorite career memories are sitting next to that guy and, walking into work, walking out of work. Great man, great host. Everybody knows Gary here locally. Phenomenal host. As good as it gets, really. And Nick J. Where did you grow up, punk? Dusty Gold. Get Kate Scott on, Larry. Love to hear what she's up to and hear past Gary stories. I got to get them on together. How about this? If Warriors Sixers wind up in the finals, maybe I get Gary and Kate together. MF, both of you shut up. That was Gary. One time Kate and I were yelling at each other and he's like, both of you shut up. I'm not going to lose my season tickets because of you guys. Yacht says, Larry, what's your favorite fast food place? Is In-N-Out count? I would probably say Chick-fil-A. I like Chick-fil-A. Go spicy chicken sandwich with that. I don't even need anything on it. Just the spicy chicken sandwich alone with the pickle does me right. The regular chicken, but the spicy, very, very good. Mr. Hanky says it's on YouTube on both of you. It's on YouTube on both of you. Both of you, shut up. Ratty was the best. Absolute the best. As good as it gets. All right. Hey, that does it for us. Have a great night, everybody. Thanks for tuning into the channel. Oh, by the way, we are at, I told you I always give you a little rundown where we're at. 17,691. 17,691. If you're one of the 329 people still hanging in the room, 2 hours and 21 minutes into this live stream, hit like and subscribe and help us get to 18,000. Thanks to all of you. Have a great night. I'll be at Niner Camp tomorrow. I'll be yapping about it, I'm sure, on YouTube afterwards. I can't wait to see these Niner players tomorrow. Smitty says Chick-fil-A is overrated. That's heresy. I say heresy. See you tomorrow, folks.
Yeah, never met a man I've been scared of. Careful, you gon' get exactly what you asked for. Careful, whatever you bring me getting handled. I answer to no one, I don't need to